Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. How is everybody doing? How are you, Nathan?
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Good. Thanks for inviting me on.
Alaikum salam. Nobody here knows who Nathan is. Everybody knows who I am because I'm famous. Unfortunately, you are not. I like your channel a lot, and I like what you do with your commentary on things. But for all those who are not fortunate enough to know you, can you please just
Yeah, sure. So when I started my channel, it was just kind of like a random YouTube link to my Google account or whatever. And then I became a Christian sort of through Jordan Peterson in around 2016. And after I became a Christian, I thought I would start making some apologetics videos. So that was when I first, I guess, was kind of, I had some weird videos on there before then of me like doing random things. But that was when I sort of was like, okay, I'm going to use my channel for this now. Then I ended up deconverting from Christianity and made kind of videos throughout that time and that process. And then since then, I've made a bunch of videos sort of, reflecting on that process, engaging with Christian philosophy, predominantly. I've engaged with, like, I've been in Hamza's den and stuff before, but I don't do that much stuff on Islamic apologetics, and interviewing some philosophers and things as well. So I'm, my channel's kind of now a mixture of stuff that's more philosophy based and stuff that's like just me hanging out and talking to people and doing reviews and
yeah. No, that's good. I would suggest everyone go for very good insights. Subscribe to Nathan's channel, Digital Gnosis, which is tagged in the title of this video, of this live stream, and also in the description. Actually, not yet in the description. I forgot that, but I will add that later on. I specifically invited Nathan today because I occasionally listen to his commentary on things, and my wife actually listens to your streams a lot. I actually found out about you through her, and I kind of overhear your responses to things, and I find them hilarious and also quite intelligent. And as I was recently reviewing a debate between Daniel Haqiqatjou and T-Jump, there were moments where I was like, what the hell are you talking about, man? And then I thought about you and your responses to things. So I thought, hey, let's just do this together. And we want to review a debate between Daniel Haqiqatjou and T-Jump on modern day debate, which is called "Are Atheists Consistent Skeptics?" which I find to be a strange title to begin with. But in the debate, Daniel Haqiqatjou makes a lot of fallacies, a lot of weird claims. You kind of had a glimpse at it, and I think you told me that it's really strange, right?
Yeah, so I didn't watch this when it originally happened. Like I still subscribe to Modern Day Debate but there's been a lot of strange debates on Modern Day Debate recently, so I've not been as into watching, keeping up with everything that's happening. But yeah, I watched his opening statement and then skipped around a little bit, and I was just finding it very difficult to make sense of the sort of argument that he was supposed to be offering for his position, or when I was clear on what he was trying to say. It wasn't clear that what he was saying was true, right? He'd rely on either spurious sort of claims that about studies and things like that, where I was like, I'm not quite sure that that's exactly right, or that does the work that you want it to do, which I guess we'll see is when we get into those specific points. But yeah, I don't know that much about the world of Islamic apologetics, so I'm going to kind of need you to fill me in a little bit on like who this guy is, or is he like funded by someone, or does it because I don't have any when it comes to the Christian apologetics universe. I can understand where people are coming from, if they've been like educated in an apologetics course or something like that, whereas in the Islamic world I just don't know anything about these people or where they're coming from.
I can take care of that. So Daniel Haqiqatjou is a Muslim apologist known as Muslim Skeptic, which I don't think he knows what skeptic really means there. His channel is called Muslim Skeptic, and he is a fundamentalist Muslim apologist who is becoming very popular, has like over 100,000 subscribers, I believe, right now. And he is just extremely outspoken on matters that are considered controversial. He supports child marriage, supports slavery, sex slavery, supports wife beating, religious war, killing apostates, killing blasphemers, and so on. You know, all the bad stuff, all the package. He supports
all the good
whole
hot
thing.
takes.
Yeah. He supports the entire set of very nice Islamic beliefs, and that's why he became so popular, because he's so outspoken about these things. I guess I could show you clips of him saying those things, but I just basically already told you, so I don't think there's any need for that. I recently showed Michaela Peterson. I invited her and showed her a clip from Daniel Haqiqatjou, and she was shocked. But yeah.
So does he have a background as an apologist? Did he like go to some Islamic university where they teach apologetics?
I believe he actually studied a degree of philosophy. I'm not sure, at some prestigious university. I know, that's incredible, right? And then moved on to physics, and I think he got a physics degree from a master's degree in physics or something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's his background. And he got interested in Islamic apologetics because he wasn't okay with the secular worldview and all that, and was like, this is the enemy. And I guess some family trauma happened, which really turned him against Western secular society and all that. But unfortunately, he became hardcore and now advocates for all the good stuff.
Right. So you're saying you've invited me to review this, but actually, you know, I'm now going to be on someone's like murder list as a result of just appearing on.
I thought you were okay with that. So.
Yeah, I can't go to the Middle East anymore. I
thought you were okay with that. That's why I invited. I forgot to ask you.
No, it's all right. Don't.
But here's just a beautiful glimpse of his wonderful logic. I just want to show you this because I found it so funny.
Both Islam and human rights are in 100% agreement that women are accountable if they break the law. And that means Islam and human rights are in 100% agreement that women should be beaten. We only differ on who should do the beating.
So this is what we're dealing with today.
I mean, it sounds like there might be a little bit of a tension between the claim of, like, you know, beating people and human rights, but that's just, you know, maybe my Western sensibility. So.
It's very trivial. It doesn't matter. All right, are you ready to jump into the debate? By the way, I should actually send a message to T-Jump too. In fact, if he's aware of this stream, maybe he could come on here and comment on the issue too. If somebody could contact him,
I think I've got him on Facebook. I could send him a message.
Yeah, you could do that. All right. You know what? I think Daniel Haqiqatjou actually studied at Harvard. So that's.
Oh wow. See, I just find that so surprising. Given, I mean, we're about to show his opening statement, right? But this was just a horrendous opening statement.
I know.
I know. He has an argument that he's clearly written down and thought about, and it's not even a valid argument. I mean, like. It's just expected that, you know, if you're presenting an argument, it's there to clarify what the case is that you're making, and it should be valid in the first place. And it's just completely confusing and all over the place. And that's really surprising to me.
It's like my education on philosophy consists of taking 1 or 2 courses and reading a bunch of books and all that. And he's supposed to be professionally trained. And I watch his opening statement and I'm like, what the hell is this? How is this even possible? Is there something wrong? Did he not understand what he was studying? I don't know.
Right.
It's very strange. Let's go into it. All right.
I just sent T-Jump the link. Sorry.
What? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. You can message him. We can start. Are you ready? Or do you want
to wait? Okay. No, it's cool. It's cool. I just saying I sent him the link. I don't know if he's going to get it. He's always streaming. But
Oh, yeah. All right, let's go.
Hey, everybody. Tonight we're debating whether or not atheists are consistent skeptics, and we are starting right now.
Is the volume okay?
it is for me, but I mean, maybe it's different for the audience.
If it's for you, then it's probably for everybody. You commented on how James looks like he got much older, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the lighting or something, but it's like James looked about 21 about 3 years ago or something, and now he looks about 50 or 60, with these like wrinkles and things.
I think it's from moderating all these debates that he aged very badly. No, I think it's just the lighting.
I hope so.
With Daniel's opening statement, thanks so much for being with us, Daniel. The floor is all yours.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Atheists say they do not believe in God because there's no scientific evidence for God. The operating principle here is that in order to be justified in...
Stop. That's not true.
I was going to pause it. I did think in my head, like, I want to pause it, but then maybe we should let it play a bit more, because I always do this, like that someone makes a stupid statement 5 seconds in or something.
But it is the first thing he says, and it's already terribly wrong. So you have to pause it, right? Do you want to comment on it?
I mean, so when it comes, I think, to discussions, philosophical discussions about whether or not God exists, I think it's best to take atheism to just be the position that a God doesn't, that no gods exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I think that's permissive of people who are going to define atheism as a lack of belief, maybe in a political context or something like that. But I do think when it comes to if we're discussing whether or not God exists, it sort of just muddies the water a bit to be like, well, I lack a belief, or people who lack a belief are atheists. I think it's more useful, if we're disagreeing about whether or not God exists, for me to just take the stance that there is no God, or there are no gods. So then, if that's what the position is, right? Well, that's just what atheists believe about the issue, that there are no gods. And then, I mean, they could believe that for any reasons, right? They might believe it because there's no scientific reasons. They might believe it for purely philosophical reasons. They might believe it because they really loved their grandma and their grandma told them it was true. There's a number of different reasons that atheists might believe that. But, just because there aren't any scientific reasons might not be. I mean, that's just not what all atheists believe, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I can speak for myself. My reason for coming to the conclusion that there is no God, for example, was not that there is no scientific evidence for God. It was purely. It was philosophical. It had nothing to do with scientific evidence. I know people who say, well, there is simply no evidence, therefore God does not exist. There are so many different perspectives. So him just coming out here and saying, atheists don't believe in God because there is no scientific evidence is just, I'm sorry, completely wrong. You're making a generalizing statement about atheists in general. That is simply not true. That's it. We're 5 seconds in and you're already completely wrong.
And a lot, I mean... I don't know how relevant this point is going to be. I mean, a lot of atheists, though, I think there are definitely some atheists who will say, look, I need some sort of like scientific type evidence in order to believe in God. But I think that most atheists, at least in the kind of philosophical space who are discussing God's existence, are like, this just isn't the upshot of scientific considerations at all. These are questions about metaphysics, and I just adopt some kind of naturalism or physicalism or something. Usually this is what philosophers think, and then that just entails that no gods exist, right? That's just kind of baked into that worldview.
Exactly. All right, let's see. We'll probably pause again after 5 seconds.
In your belief in something, you need to have scientific evidence in order to be justified in your belief for God. The operating principle here is that in order to be justified in your belief in something, you need to have scientific evidence. But how consistent...
Basically the same thing. That was again a false claim. That's simply wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a good point maybe against like T-Jump's epistemology, provided I'm understanding and characterizing it right, where I think T-Jump says something like, you should only believe things that make novel testable predictions or something like that. That could be wrong though. But I mean, for most people, there's a whole ton of beliefs like that I have 2 hands or something, right? That pretty much no one thinks you have to have some kind of scientific proof.
Yeah.
But then you could just broaden what you mean by scientific proof to just mean any observation or something, or any like any sense perception, you know. And then I just don't think we're talking about, you know, science anymore, because we're just encompassing anything that we observe.
Yeah. I'm meanwhile making notes of how many fallacious and wrong things he said. For every thing that I hear, I put a I draw a line.
Yeah.
I'll count them when we're done.
And you have to do a shot for everyone. That's
They'll be horrible.
Atheists in applying this principle. My argument is that atheists are not consistent. They are selective skeptics. Let me share my...
I don't want to stop it every second, but I mean, it's again a broad statement that you simply cannot make if you're talking about a huge variety of people whose only shared, you know, feature it is not to believe in a certain deity. You cannot say they are inconsistent. I mean, of course they are inconsistent among each other. They're supposed to be. They're humans. They have different views. That's not an argument, though. And you simply cannot make such a broad statement. You could say the same thing about Muslims, about every single human group and being.
It seems like the actual disagreement of this debate is almost going to be about something other than what the title of the debate is. Because if the title of the debate being "Are atheists consistent skeptics?" sounds like, you know, is it true that all atheists are consistent skeptics? And then T-Jumps, when it comes to his turn to respond, is going to say something like, "Well, of course they're all not," which might sound like he's conceding, you know, the debate. But I do think there is.
Look, I'm right. Like,
yeah, I think that what the disagreement is over is over whether Daniel's like characterization of what atheists should believe or something, like only the scientific claims, and what atheists in fact themselves say, you know, atheism is, well, it's just this single claim about God not existing, whatever. So you know, there's nothing there about I have to believe everything that science tells me, or I can only believe things that are justified by the sciences.
Yeah. Sorry, my dog is barking like hell, which is haram.
Screen here.
It's going to share a screen. Let's wait. That's a beautiful screen.
Yeah.
And this was really worthwhile as well, because it added so much clarity, the screen share.
Here is the argument. Premise 1, atheists live in societies with governments and laws. Premise
We live in a society. Premise 1, we live in a society.
I thought about
under governments and laws they believe are morally evil. They will revolt. Premise 3, to avoid civil war, there needs to be a basic consensus that the government and laws are not morally evil. If a high percentage of the people believe that government and laws are evil because of oppression, discrimination, or lies, they will revolt. Premise 5.
Okay, already on this first page, I know there are so many things. I just don't want to pause like 5,000 times, but he already makes a and I see you're laughing, but he already makes the claim that to avoid civil war there needs to be consensus that the government and laws are not morally evil, which you can only say that if all humans actually agreed on a thing like morally evil, on the existence of morally evil. People have different moral frameworks, different moral perspectives, which is why you can't even make such a statement and be accurate in that, unless you want to speak about the majority of people, which again could also be entirely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk a bit more about this in a second, because I really did try to make sense of what this argument with. But just in terms of presentation, something that I want to point out, right, is that this argument isn't really helping to make clear what Daniel's position is and what the disagreement is. So he's got, I think, six premises and 2 conclusions that he draws from this argument. 4 of the premises are on one page. The other 4 are on the other page. They're all quite wordy, you know. So just in terms of making sense of what even the claims are that are disputed or disagreed about, I think this is just very unhelpful. And arguments are often used like this in these sorts of debates, right? Where the idea is, if you can make your argument as kind of big and aggressive as possible, then it's like this weapon to intimidate your opponent and make you look very smart or something. And I'm kind of I'm against that in general, and it's not clear if that is what's going on here. Because if that is what's going on, it's almost very tragic, because it's not even clear that the argument's valid, let alone that are many of the premises even true. Maybe the first one's true, but then if we're going to talk about are all atheists consistent skeptics, right? I can use the same level of kind of precision, right, on this claim: atheists live in human societies. Well, not all atheists, right? If that's the level of precision we're concerned with. So yeah,
even the fourth premise here: if a high percentage of people believe that government and laws are evil, they will revolt. Is how exactly did you come to that conclusion? It's
exactly.
It simply does not follow. You cannot demonstrate this. If a high percentage of people believe that government and laws are evil, they will revolt. They could revolt. Maybe they should revolt. Maybe they may revolt. Some of them may revolt. You cannot say they will revolt. This is simply a fallacious point to begin with. And if you base your entire conclusion on such points, then it's going to go wrong.
But he also switches between, the terms that he's using. He's going to switch between using, I think, like revolt and civil war as well at different points in the argument. So those are different things, like revolt and civil war. And as you say, it's just not clear that these are actually true. Like humans will not live peacefully under governments and laws they believe are morally evil. They will revolt. Well, maybe in some cases, right, but maybe not in all cases. Maybe there's maybe the government is really powerful and people just feel helpless, or people are so psychologically manipulated that they just they never feel like they have the power to revolt against that government in any kind of way. They just go along with their lives in kind of misery. So it's just and in terms of the validity, like these premises don't actually fit together, right? They're not like going anywhere. They're just like these independent claims that are sitting idle, that false independent claims. So it's as bad as it could get, really.
Yeah. But who are you to speak? Daniel Haqiqatjou says they will revolt, so they will. Let's go to the next page.
Premise 5, or premise 4. Sorry. Premise 4: scientific facts alone are not enough to create consensus among large.
Not even the right number.
Consensus requires additional facts. Those facts can be religious choices.
How is this happening? I don't even understand. Like, how is he on the wrong page while reading the right thing, or the other way around? I don't even get it. How do you do this?
Character, or they can be non-religious in character. Those are the only two choices. Premise 5: atheists.
Okay, so now I don't know how to solve this problem. So let's just read this again. Scientific facts alone are not enough to create consensus. Consensus requires additional factual claims, religious or non-religious.
Reject purported facts that are religious in character. Therefore, in accepting political consensus, atheists accept facts that are not religious in character and are not backed by science.
You see how in these conclusions, right? It's not clear. It's not clear at all what all of this stuff about revolt and civil war like has to do with the conclusions that he's reached, which is why in a formulation I tried to come up with, I tried to work that in, because I was like, surely this has got to be doing some work in how he's thinking about this, right?
I know you actually sent me. You tried to make sense of his argument and wrote it down and sent it to me, and I was like, well, this actually makes much more sense than what he presented.
I can show that really at some point. I think it would be useful, but.
But just to come to the issue here, atheists reject religious claims. Again, broad statement, not entirely true, not 100% true. Scientific facts alone are not enough to create consensus. Consensus requires additional factual claims, religious or non-religious. I don't have a big issue with this point.
It depends, though, because so they're enough to create scientific consensus, presumably, or it depends what you mean by scientific facts, right? And like the facts existing out there. If you mean the states of affairs in the world, well, they don't sort of do anything. If you mean people kind of discovering those facts or whatever, well, then they seem to be enough to create scientific consensus. But then, are the sciences able to drive people's political beliefs? Well, maybe not in a lot of cases as well. So it's I'm not sure about that premise, I would say.
Yeah. When it comes to 7, so it's entirely disconnected. We have no idea why all those premises were made to begin with, coming to this conclusion. Therefore, in accepting political consensus, atheists accept facts that are not religious and not scientific. It's already, you totally lose me here, and
So
many
I
people,
think
I guess.
I think there's an easier way to get to that conclusion, though, right? You could say something like, well, atheists believe they have hands. Having hands isn't a religious claim, and it's not a scientific claim. So atheists have beliefs that are not religious and not scientific. Like, you don't need all this stuff about like,
Yeah. Evil laws and civil war and all that. And the 8th. Oh, did you want to share your? Oh, wait.
I can do, but yeah, you can talk about his conclusion if it would be useful. The 8th one.
Oh, okay. Let's do that quickly, and then let's get back to yours. 8. Therefore, atheists are not consistent skeptics, at least those living in stable secular societies.
He's not said anything that would substantiate that.
Yeah. A very great example of how the conclusion doesn't follow from the premises at all. Please show us how. But then the remark, even, at least those living in stable secular societies.
Yeah, which means how he's thinking about it. It does connect back to the first things that he was saying, right, about people revolting and things like that. But it's just not clear how it connects. Like, what does it? I don't think there are any premises about what it is to be consistent or anything like that. It's
he needs to establish that first, right?
Not character, and are not.
Is there anything here? Will not live peacefully.
Because what he's not established is that he's not established, right, that scientific and religious facts mutually like exhaust the space of all the relevant facts, right? So it could be the case. So he needs some premise that says something like that, because it could be the case that skeptics have these beliefs that aren't justified scientifically, and they're not justified, religiously either. But they just sit somewhere else because it's not been established that religious facts and scientific facts exhaust all the facts that there are. Or something. Maybe there's this realm of political facts or moral facts or something.
Yeah, this is the thing. I listen to this and I think about the fact that this guy, is, at least by his own, by his own statement, a graduate in philosophy from a prestigious university, and he keeps bringing that up again and again and again and brags about it a lot. But then I listen to this and it just doesn't make sense.
Right. I mean, and you never know, but but this sort of thing, honestly, would not be. I would be surprised if this would get like a passing grade on like an undergraduate essay, like in philosophy.
Yeah. But Daniel Haqiqatjou is a very tough man, and therefore, who are we to judge that? He will destroy us all with his toughness. So.
Well, this is a consistent theme I've found with Islamic apologists in my engagements, and it's also with like in Christianity, sort of some Calvinist communities and things. But how much the idea of being like a tough guy, a masculine man, and all these things sort of play into these kind of stereotypes that people try to perform in being the apologist. So like with Mohammed Hijab ripping his shirt off as he gives a speech or something, and he's telling himself some story about like who he is and what it means to be a leader of the Islamic peoples or something. I just find it very interesting.
And then he even posted that video on his own channel with some emotional, inspiring music and a filter on it. It's just so ridiculous, man. Do you want to refer to your own version to make it more understandable?
So yeah, I just wanted to try to make sense of what he was saying, because this isn't even a valid argument. So validity in a deductive argument is just to say that the premises being true guarantees the truth of the conclusion. And that's usually just expected coming into it, looking at an argument. So then you can talk about whether or not the premises are true, which is presumably what you disagree about. So this was my best attempt to make sense of what he was saying. And I broke it down into these like two little arguments whose conclusions inform this sort of final point here. And I think it becomes apparent just how absurd the argument is when it is put in this form. But I don't think this is a straw man of what he was saying. So I think he was saying something like, societal consensus is a consensus of non-scientific claims. But atheists only agree about scientific claims, right? And obviously that's not true. Atheists agree about a bunch of other things. I mean, presumably the non-existence of God is a non-scientific claim, right? That atheists agree about. So therefore, atheists do not have societal consensus. So that would be the first sort of mini argument. And then, if some social group shouldn't revolt, so that's a claim about what the group should and shouldn't do, right? Which may or may not be true. But if some social group shouldn't revolt, then then it's true that every social group has a consensus that the laws of a nation are not morally evil. If a social group does not have societal consensus, then that group does not have consensus that the laws of their nation are not morally evil. Atheists do not have a consensus that the laws of their nation are not morally evil. Therefore, there should be a revolt of atheists. So I think this is the second sort of conclusion. And obviously, you know, I don't think any of this is right either.
I mean, when I look at it, I see. I mean, when you sent me this, I thought, okay, this is much better formulated, but it's just dumb.
Yeah, well, it's at least valid, stupid. But then it becomes more clear that the premises are just completely wrong. I mean, even if you weren't sure about what any of these premises mean, right? The way that arguments work, it's a relationship of logical entailment between the conclusions and the premises. So you can be that sure that this conclusion is wrong, right? That you're like, well, look, I don't know anything about those premises, but I know that I don't accept them all together at the same time if they entail that. So that's something. So then I think then this final piece of the argument is to say, well, consistent skeptics always do what they should do. And I'm not sure that that's right either. Atheists don't revolt. So atheists don't do what they should do. So atheists aren't consistent skeptics. And that's the best sense I could make of it. But
pretty much. Thank you for helping him out, although he prepared a huge presentation here. But I think now let's, with some better knowledge of what he actually means, let's go and listen to him.
Premise 5, atheists reject perpetual and are not, at least those living in stable secular societies. So, for example, look at China. With over 60% atheist population, the highest in the world, do you think Chinese atheists are free thinkers? No, obviously much of their worldview is Chinese nationalist propaganda. Or consider the former USSR, a government which was explicitly atheist and ruled over millions of atheists. Were Soviet atheists free thinkers?
I just can't help it, man. How stupid is this? What kind of an idiotic thing is? What kind of an idiotic presentation is this? What kind of a dumb idea? I mean, oh my god.
So I'm trying to make sense of. So I think from where he's coming from, though, this makes perfect sense. But I think that what it shows you is just how biased his kind of position is. You know, it's all kind of stereotyped. So it's like, because I remember this similar rhetoric, right, being a Christian, about how atheist societies are basically, you know, communist China or the Soviet Union, like they're your options, kind of thing. I mean, this is one of Jordan Peterson's big points, right? And obviously, you know, their worldviews aren't informed purely by scientific facts. But then there's this further claim as well that atheists pretend that they only believe scientific facts. I mean, we established right at the start that just isn't what most atheists at least think, right? That they only believe scientific facts or something. Yeah. Like, I had breakfast this morning isn't a scientific fact. So yeah, this is just a mess. But I think to his audience, that the point from like a social point of view is this is going to make a lot of sense to his audience because it's ticking all these right stereotype boxes of like, well, mention communism bad, and that's what atheism does, you know. And so you can kind of look at what the enemy is and what they believe in the world they want.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a primitive approach to the entire issue, to the divide between theism and atheism, and such an ignorant statement to make. Where I am really wondering, does he actually hold these views, and does he really think this way? Because if so, that's incredibly stupid. Or does he just use these talking points to appeal to an audience that doesn't know better?
Or it could be that this is what he genuinely has to tell himself to cling on to Islam, right? It's like, well, look, if I didn't believe this, the alternative is communism, and
I mean, it's very simple, isn't it? I mean, this is like he comes to you or to me, an atheist, and says, "Also, you're not an atheist. You think you are. You think you are upon the truth. So you only accept scientific facts, right? Well, what about China? Most people in China are atheists, but they are not. They don't have a free society. So where's your consistency, dude? What the hell?
That's a
talking
great point.
about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I mean, we are atheists allegedly insofar that we apparently do not have a belief in a certain in a deity or in a certain deity, whatever it is, which does not mean that we also agree that there are no spiritual beings, that there is no spiritual realm, that there is no no fantasy, no supernatural stuff. But somebody else, a Chinese person, for example, can be an atheist while also believing that the ghosts of their ancestors are haunting their home and so on. It's completely entirely possible, because an atheist just does not believe in God. An atheist is not by doctrine or by the book required to also reject all kinds of beliefs in the unseen and in supernatural beings and all that. And if you reference the Soviet Union or today's Chinese population and government as an example for atheists, then you are just doing an even dumber mistake. Those people simply happen to be atheists as a result of their policies, of their worldviews, and so on. That does not mean that we follow the same worldview. It is almost like saying, hey, you are a theist, you believe in God, you are a Muslim, you say you have a perfect society. Then what about this South American state, which are very religious Christians, and they're not doing so well? So what are you going to say about that, huh? Like, it's dumb.
And another thing to just to highlight as well is this doesn't actually establish that they're not consistent skeptics, right? Because these people in China who are atheists and believe all this Chinese propaganda about whatever it is that they believe, well, maybe they have very good reasons to believe that, right? Maybe for every skeptical argument you'd raise, they in fact have. So he's not really established the kind of conclusion that he's reaching for by pointing to them. But as you said, it's kind of like, it's like I accuse you of being irrational, right? I'm like, look, you're irrational, and then you go, well, why is it that you think I'm irrational? And I say, well, Tom over there believes in square circles. And it's like, right, okay.
So therefore, you are inconsistent.
Yeah.
And we didn't even talk about the actual point of his that he's trying to make here, which is that atheists pretend they only operate based on scientific facts, which is simply wrong. It's a wrong generalization, but they also abide by non-scientific facts and do not revolt, which does not follow from any of the premises, and which simply is, again, wrong. I just can't find any other way to say it. It's just wrong. It is dumb. It doesn't make sense, man.
So someone gave me a term recently that I think is quite interesting for these sorts of situations, where he said fractally wrong, right? So like a fractal is one of those images where you go into it and it keeps reproducing the same image again and again and again. And so the idea of being fractally wrong is like you assess any of the claims, right? And so the claim's like wrong in the first place, and then you dig into it and there's like 10 more wrong claims, and then in each of them there's like 10 more wrong.
Yeah, exactly. There is no end to it. Oh man.
No, their worldview is dictated in large part by Soviet propaganda. Well, we have the same situation in the secular West. The state propaganda is liberal, secular political ideology, and no one is more blindly committed to that ideology than Western atheists.
Than T-Jump, who you're debating, who's literally been like cancelled for doing all this super straight stuff and things. I mean, I don't agree with him about that stuff, but I mean, it's like, know the person you're debating, right? Like,
I'm just going to put another line here for something extremely ridiculously stupid that he said without going into it again.
We can understand this better with 4 categories of examples. Examples that have to do with utilitarianism, about human nature, about group difference, and about so-called conspiracy theories.
So-called conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Conspiracy hypotheses, he means.
Utilitarianism, what is natural, group differences, and so-called conspiracy hypotheses.
Let's start with the first category of utilitarianism.
I like that we get T-Jump's facial expressions back now, because they're always golden when people are saying
Democracy versus dictatorship.
We're not able to see your, pardon my interruption, we're not able to see your slides anymore if you still had slides you were showing.
Yeah, I took off the screen share.
Got it.
So you shouldn't see any more slides.
You got it.
Consider democracy versus dictatorship. Which political model leads to better socioeconomic outcomes? You can bring in a ton of empirical data to weigh pro.
Wait a second, I missed what he just. What was he comparing? Did he say?
Democracy and dictatorship.
Okay.
And which has the best socioeconomic, I think he said, outcomes. But...
Yeah, I was too focused on what's going on there.
And cons to justify either position. But ultimately, science alone is not going to definitively decide. You need additional facts that go beyond science to justify one position, and that's where political ideology.
And that's where political science comes in.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Who knew about that? Who knew about that? It's like you're giving me some new great wisdom here. I never knew about this. I never knew that science alone is not enough to, going into a laboratory is not enough to come to.
Well, this is the problem, right? Is that like science is characterized as just like mixing stuff together in test tubes or something. And it's like, well, how are you going to figure out which political system's best if you just, as an atheist, just focused on mixing stuff together in test tubes, right?
Yeah. My test tubes don't tell me that democracy is better than dictatorship. So what am I going to do now? Oh, no.
Yeah. I guess I must become a Muslim. That's the only option.
Oh, man. I mean, do you not see how stupid this is? Please, man. Another line here. Okay.
Theology comes in. Of course, we find that atheists in the West overwhelmingly support the idea of liberal democracy. Atheists in China or the US.
Yeah.
Which depends on cultural factors, but I think they get into that after a while.
Beg to differ. Another example, atheists believe that giving people more and more freedoms is good for society and increases happiness and prosperity.
Wrong. I see a lot of people who do not agree with that. I encounter a lot of people, and I'm sure so do you, who say, hey, I am an atheist, but I'm completely against this trend that is currently going on. We need to go back to this and this time where things were better. There are people who say I'm a conservative atheist. There are people who say I'm an atheist, and I think we should establish a monarchy in America. Okay, that's probably an exaggeration. I've never heard of that, but there are different atheists who have all kinds of different ideas which they propose. This is again a statement that is just made up out of thin air.
Yeah, it's like the idea of giving people freedoms is always going to be a kind of balancing act between some people's freedoms and others, because by saying people have the right not to be raped, you're sort of infringing on the rights of those who have the desire to rape people, right? By saying people have the freedom to own private property, you're saying some other people can't steal or something. Yeah. And I'm not in favor of those freedoms, right? I don't want people to have these other freedoms to like steal and rape and murder.
Yeah. For example, Daniel Haqiqatjou, he believes that it's okay to take sex slaves and to rape them and to beat people and to marry children and all that. And I as an atheist, I don't support those freedoms. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
By what standard?
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm deeply sorry, but you have to accept that I simply cannot support these freedoms. I don't like them. I don't want them. It's just like I don't like how they sound. That's why. It's like I like specific forms of ice cream. I don't like other forms of ice cream, and just like that, I don't like sex slavery, for example. I like consensual sex. This is actually how he thinks. I mean, he's probably going to take this seriously when it's said. That's actually how he thinks. Oh my god.
But is this actually true? Again, a utilitarian argument weighing net benefits versus net harms based on empirical evidence could show that actually individual freedoms should be strictly limited. There could be arguments either way, but the point is science cannot definitively.
Oh my God. There are different forms of utilitarianism, which you should learn in a simple course on these philosophies. I mean, he should know these things, right? He's supposedly an expert in these things. Different forms of utilitarianism, which come to different solutions through different means, and some propose that acts themselves are, I don't know, inherently good or evil, whereas others conclude that they are only good or evil based on the actual outcome. You have different perspectives on utilitarianism. This is again a broad statement where you also cannot simply. I mean, I'm not even getting into how he misrepresents the actual conclusion of utilitarianism, which is not, well, if there is like net good, then it's okay, you know, and if there's net evil, net harm, then it's not okay. That's simply not how you treat the situation, right?
I think maybe what Daniel's sort of confused between is something like natural and science or something. So, most atheists tend to be something like naturalists. Mm-hmm. And so, in a naturalist framework, well, being a utilitarian, right, is perfectly fine. You're not appealing to non-natural, it's not like pleasure is a non-natural phenomena or something. So I think he's kind of getting confused between that, saying atheists only believe these scientific things. And then he's like, well, look, utilitarianism isn't a science or something, so therefore gotcha, now you're committed to, but it's like, no, but he's still a naturalist, right? And that's the important point. And naturalism entails the falsity of theism because there are no gods of naturalism.
And there's a thing, I mean, one of the basics of utilitarianism and of people who established and proposed utilitarian ideas is that you're supposed to be allowed to think freely. Your mind, your thoughts, and your opinions are not to be, suppressed just because people are offended. Because establishing certain, religious laws or other laws, and based on them suppressing what people may or may not think and say, will lead to societal unrest and eventually to societal collapse and revolutions again, which is why the ideal thing to do is to let people think freely, establish free speech, and only restrict people if they actually cause harm, if they actually hurt others. I mean, based on this principle, you could not say, oh, you know what? I think based on my utilitarian ideas, it is actually better for us to, it's actually better that women cover themselves up and don't leave the house anymore. Therefore, we need to lock all women into their homes, make them subject to their husbands, and if they don't obey, then we will just beat the hell out of them. It is contrary. It is contradictory. It is contrary to the fundamentals of the philosophy that you're appealing to, which is why it simply doesn't work. Is there anything you want to add, or do you want to move on?
No, I'm happy to move on. I am also a bit conscious of we're 7 minutes into the video and there's like 3 hours.
Well, it's not our fault. It's Daniel's fault. Okay, let's move on.
Definitively settle this question. Despite this, atheists are unanimous. Where's their skepticism? Or what about encouraging women?
I'll just make a line. Atheists are not unanimous. I'm sorry.
Where's your skepticism? Well, it's like, I was skeptical about moral theories, and that's why I kind of fell on utilitarianism, right? Like,
I'm currently exercising skepticism by questioning every single word that he says very accurately. I think, I don't know, you could develop
a little bit more skepticism about this argument when he was putting it together would have been helpful.
To pursue careers as opposed to being mothers and homemakers. There is a lot of empirical data showing how careerism among women is associated with higher rates of mental illness, worse outcomes for
it is a mental illness. If women, if they want jobs, that's a mental illness.
Oh boy. Is he actually going to present data on that? Because I'm pretty sure that that is an example of correlation, not causation.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be the case when people pull out statistics. You know, the old kind of adage, right? You can use statistics to prove anything, and
Yeah,
what's the best
exactly.
explanation of why you see those things? Like correlations can be indicative of causation, but I mean, you're going to need to do a bit more work there.
Yeah.
And he's not actually presented or told us what his sources are. You know, whether it could be like, you know, my source for this is I asked my Muslim mother and sister or something. You know, like, and 100% of respondents, you know.
Yeah, if he's just going to say this person says, let's see what he says. Maybe he'll give us a source.
And many other negative social effects. How do we decide which policy is best? One method is to let religion dictate laws and social policy. Religion creates that moral consensus, and that is most common.
Well, this just isn't true, is it? Like, if you just look at the Middle East, right, and all of the division between Islamic countries with their various different, you know, theologies and different political systems and disagreements, there isn't consensus.
Yeah, there simply is no consensus. There is no consensus among religious people. There is no consensus among Sunnis or Shiites or others. There is no consensus among the different schools and movements within the Sunnis and Shiites. And if we want to come down to it, this guy is what you would call a Salafi Muslim, who are a very fundamentalist revivalist movement, and there is not even consensus among them. It simply is not true. These people, I mean, we see an example of it if you just start exploring the online Muslim apologists scene, the Dawa scene. They are constantly fighting, accusing each other of of corrupting the religion and of whatever it is. And there's constant drama going on. It's like it's actually very enjoyable to watch. I preferred to TV dramas, you know.
Yeah.
This
is also my guilty pleasure. My like entertainment is watching, you know, the weird space of human beings as they try to rationalize their kind of like religious commitments.
Yeah. It is, and there he said
religion creates that. One method is to let. How do we decide which policy is best? One method is to let religion dictate laws and social policy. Religion creates.
Okay, one more thing that I want to add briefly. You would have to get much deeper into this, but first off, he didn't present any evidence that women who work instead of staying at home have increased mental illnesses and all that. He didn't present any evidence for that. But even if that were true, the conclusion would then not be, therefore, it is wrong that women work, and we should therefore ban women from work and they should stay at home. That is simply.
It could be that we should just have women should work, but we should also have mental health care right alongside work, and maybe that would be better.
Yeah, or we should find the cause why it causes increased mental illness and should tackle that. I mean, just because you analyzed, just because you found a piece of evidence, which, by the way, we have not seen, that does not mean, oh, look, therefore this is bad. Okay, let's shut it down. Let's shut it all down. That's stupid. I'm sorry, and I'm putting another line for that. So
it's that moral consensus, and that is most common in human history, but that's precisely what atheists reject. So how can secular governments create consensus? Well, they fabricate claims to support their liberal ideology.
They think.
Now, how do religions create consensus? They fabricate claims to create.
It's you can argue the same thing from the other perspective, from the other side of the room. I mean, it's very simple, man. It's really very, very simple. And wow, I mean, I'm very shocked to find out that atheists make laws by thinking and coming up with ideas. You know, why would they do something like that? Why would they think and come up with ideas? Why would they do that? It's very bad.
And the laws, like whether or not the laws of the country are there by consensus, is very dependent on that particular country's government and stuff. So it might be the case that people vote representatives who are supposed to pass laws that. But the people aren't voting on the laws that get passed, at least in the UK, right? So,
look at Tijam's reaction, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's probably the appropriate response.
Oh my. You know what's funny? I actually went down in the into the comment section of this stream, and
Oh,
I
no.
had to find out that the entire comment section was again spammed by Islamists who just are completely in support of Daniel. Some say stuff like, "I am an atheist, but Daniel did such a great job." Obviously, that's not true. Though you're not an atheist, and it's very funny because when you go into the comment section first and you read the comments and you're like, "Wait a minute, what happened to you?" I guess T-Jump did a terrible job and Daniel Haqiqatjou was so much better. But then when you actually watch the debate, you want to pull your hair out because of the nonsense that Daniel Haqiqatjou talks, and you entirely agree with T-Jump and his responses, but the comment section, it turns out, is just full of spam by Muslims who want to give people the perception that their side is right by leaving comments and suppressing the public opinion.
Well, this is always the problem with these sorts of things, like people, and it does afflict the atheist side as well. Like you sort of come into it and you just see what you kind of want to see, and it's a broader critique of these debates, right? They can be fun and entertaining and stuff, but they're just not necessarily a very good measure of which position's true, because oftentimes you just want to see your team fling shit at the other team or something.
Yeah. John Ward made a comment here, said, "I'm an atheist, but what Daniel said has made me take the shahada right now." Right. This is not even an exaggeration. You can find these comments in such comment sections, and it's non.
Well, I mean, his argument didn't even have anything to do with Islam, right? It's like, religion creates consensus. Okay, I'm becoming a Mormon, right? Like,
yeah. It's so ridiculous, man.
And aggressively censor competing narratives. Their liberal ideology and aggressively censor competing narratives. For example, if we were to suggest, well, empirical data shows that net harm of women in the workplace is actually greater than the benefit, therefore we should ban it, what is the response from atheists and the
that's wrong? That's not true.
That's first of evidence. Secondly, horrible argument, horrible conclusion, which does not at all follow from the premises. It's just so. I'm trying to hold it in and not say what I really think.
It's just, what is the response? As though as though there's just nothing that can be said to this. It's like, whoa, yeah, wow, that is insane when you think about it.
But he's going to say, though, but then we get canceled when we say these things, and oh my god, therefore atheists are not consistent skeptics.
Liberal secularism. They say that's misogyny, that's hate speech, that's extremism. You're blocked from exploring or even considering a set of potential scientific facts.
If you're on a platform, as he literally publicly talks about these ideas with an atheist. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Here's one thing. I agree that people should have much more freedom to say whatever the hell they want on social media platforms, because I think it's the right way to let everyone speak their opinion, as long as they are not, saying let's go and kill this group of people. That they should present their ideas as controversial as they are, because people should be able to explore different ideas and to weigh the pros and cons and all that. So I agree with that, but what exactly does that have to do with your entire debate topic here?
Yeah, so I think maybe the idea is that the claims he's making are not scientific ones. So atheists who believe only scientific things can't say that they're wrong, but then they're still willing to ban. They're still willing to ban him or whatever, if that's true. And then that means that they're committed to non-scientific claims, which is in conflict with the fact that they claim to only believe scientific claims or something like that. But I mean, all of that's not really true. So
yeah. But well, yeah.
You'll not get funding for your research. You'll be kicked out of academia.
To that point, you'll not get funding. There is so much funding for Islamic scholarship at least in UK universities, right? If you want to if you want to do like a degree in the humanities, there's very little independent fund. I mean, there's some from places like the Templeton Foundation or something like that, but there's very little independent funding, at least for like studying philosophy and stuff like that. But there's a ton of funding if you want to do a scholarship in Islamic philosophy. So not even historical Islamic philosophy, the contemporary, bringing forward the contemporary theology and bringing it into dialogue with modern analytic philosophy or something.
Oh yeah. That's again a very terrible thing to go to. I mean, if I say things that people don't like, then I will not get funding for my research. Well, great. I mean, even if that is too bad.
Well, that would be a good thing if it was. Yeah, it's like, it's kind of like that Mitchell and Webb bit, where they're like, are we the baddies when they've got skulls on their caps and things? It's like, have you ever thought, we've got skulls on, are we the bad guys? It's like, yeah. There's a reason that mainstream universities don't want to associate with like Wahhabi Islam or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to vote for, a research, a project, I would certainly not say, hey, you know what? Let's give our funding to this guy who wants to make a research about why it is good to execute people who leave their religion. I would be like, yeah, I don't think we should be funding that. No, let's just.
But as I said, as far as I'm aware, though, there is actually lots of funding for. Now, maybe it could be the case that they wouldn't fund. if someone was like, I'm gonna exegete the Quran and figure out justify like child slavery or something weird. I don't know. Maybe they'd be like, yeah, that's too spicy for us. But it's just not true that there isn't funding for Islamic scholarship, because there's disproportionately more funding for Islamic scholarship than
there is
lots of other, than atheist scholarship in the humanities.
There is. But Robert Moshe Thompson said, my friend who is a trans man says, thank you, Sheikh Kibudi, for validating his manhood. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, I published a video yesterday in which a Muslim caller named Sheikh Kibudi explains what is a woman.
Okay.
You should watch it and analyze it sometime. The conclusion is basically, if you have a beard, then you're a man. If you don't have a beard, then you're a woman. That's how simple.
Right. Well, I have seen some Muslim ladies with beards, I think. So I'm not. Honestly, I think I have.
Well, they're men, so yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Banned from social media. You might even be charged with hate speech in some secular countries. You're not allowed to research scientific facts.
And as we have established, just like in the case of China and the Soviet Union, just because certain laws judge you and charge you with certain things, that does not mean atheists are therefore inconsistent. This is very simple. Another point for you. Let's go.
Facts that are politically incorrect according to the secular establishment. It's just asserted that science supports the secular position. So where's the skepticism from atheists? Now let's move to the second category of examples regarding.
So where's the skepticism from atheists?
What does he want me to like point over there? Like over there. There you go. Like there it is.
All of these things. And the conclusion, so where is the skepticism from atheists? I'm like,
but I mean, that's that the thing is, he's saying we're implying that there isn't the skepticism, right? But he's not actually established that there isn't skepticism.
Yeah. Show us that there is no skepticism. Come on, demonstrate it, man. This is, oh my God, we're almost 9 minutes into the video. This is horrible.
What is human nature? Are human beings naturally atheist or religious? Plenty of evidence suggests that humans are naturally religious and believe in God.
I'm sorry, that's simply wrong.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean that the whole notion of a human nature in the first place is very philosophically loaded, right? The idea that there are kind of like what it is to be a human. That's going to be a philosophical thing. I mean, there's obviously a lot of evidence that cross-culturally people have religious beliefs of some sort, or so I think something like ancestor worship is like very common amongst most human societies, but that's very different from the sort of religious beliefs that people who are Muslims have. But yeah, I think this, you've got to be really careful whenever you hear this language about like human nature, I think, because I mean people are more often than not just them baking in some kind of like prejudice that they want to establish, right? Like, this is what it is to be human, is to hate gay people, or to, something like, it's against human nature to be gay. Like,
yeah. And he's saying that there is plenty of evidence that humans are naturally religious. But as far as I know, there's only one major research which actually explores this question by what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name. If you know, a prestigious researcher who also is a devout Christian, by the way, and he admits. The guy himself admits. I just recently mentioned this in a video that I made about the singer Dua Lipa, which is very funny. He mentions he mentions in the research and in the conclusion that it is not his intention to prove that humans are naturally religious, or that humans naturally believe in a God. And the conclusion is not that it is that the belief in God is inherent to humans. The conclusion is that humans have the tendency to explore and to question certain things, and to come to the conclusion that there is probably something out there. But depending on their culture and their environment, they can come to a different conclusion. There's probably something out there, or there are some people out there. And in cultures where there is a complete lack of religion, people may not come to that conclusion, but may come to different conclusions instead. So people are not necessarily inherently religious. That's what the scholar himself says. I just recently made a video. I forgot his name, really. And he even gives an example to show beliefs that children have, because that's what this is all about. It's about children and how they view the world, thereby analyzing if humans are naturally religious or not. He also gives as an example that children up to a certain age believe in a lot of fantasy. Like, they believe that their parents know everything there is, and that, for example, if you show your parents a box, they know exactly what is inside that box. Only after a certain age they learn that their parents don't know everything after all. And just like that, they have certain perceptions which are natural to their to their curiosity. That's what the research is actually about. It never proves or establishes, as this guy claims, that humans are naturally certainly religious.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact paper that you're referring to. I've probably just not, because I've not done a whole lot of reading about this, but my understanding is similar to what you described, that sort of within our cognitive faculties built into them, it is this propensity to sort of come up with teleological explanations, right? Mm-hmm. So that, there's a very famous experiment where there's a kind of cartoon of triangles moving around a screen, and children and adults alike, but predominantly children, are prone to explain what's going on with the triangles in terms of, like triangles bullying the other triangle and stuff like that. And, to attribute sort of like these desires and things like that. And this is quite a famous experiment, demonstrating the types of some of the types of teleological explanations that we come up with. And I think that this is fairly robust for psychology, but, obviously I need to do some more digging. And I think that is alleged to be the explanation about why cross-culturally people would, sort of begin to attribute minds and things to various, natural processes that are taking place, because they're postulating various kind of teleological explanations and things that are so I agree that the particular content, right, of what that mind is, whether it's like whether it's Allah or the Christian God, whether it's various ancestor spirits, whether it's kind of some nature deity or something, I mean, that's not built into human nature, as it were. What's built into human nature is this propensity to explain things in terms of like a personal agent doing things. There's a lot of ways to.
I mean, here's this is just my video that I published a few weeks ago, in which I analyzed that the guy's name is Justin Barrett, and he analyzes the issue, and he basically, I mean, I pretty much summarized the certain points that are that in this research are not in agreement with Daniel Haqiqatjou's claim here. But children were asked whether their mother would know the contents of a box in which she could not see. Children aged 3 believed that their mother and God would always know the contents. But by the age of 4, children start to understand that their mothers are not all-seeing and all-knowing. However, children may continue to believe in all-seeing, all-knowing supernatural agents, such as a God or gods. There is a different part. Barrett admits that children do not come out of the womb equipped with religious ideas. For example, parental testimony that confidently attests to divine agents will reinforce beliefs, while post-industrial settings that encourage reflective thinking will tend to foster atheism, and so on. So it doesn't really support your argument, boys. All right.
And that's also, if it's true that having religious belief is a part of human nature, then that would mean that when you cease to believe in religious beliefs, you no longer have a human nature, right? If that's actually true. So you'd like see, I mean, and that's, I mean, maybe he'd be okay with that, because, you know, then it's like, yeah, that's why we can kill the atheists. I've just given the strongest Islamic argument for, you know, killing atheists or something like that. But,
fantastic. Good.
I mean, that's obviously sort of absurd that people cease to be human once they lose religious belief.
Yeah, and you could argue that a lot of things are natural to humans, because humans also come equipped with the, I guess, with the desire to take care of their own, you know, self-preservation at any cost, and learn through upbringing, through society, how to actually interact with humans in order to create a healthy environment and all that. Humans feel pleasure from you know, killing or harming others, because it is a part of self-preservation. You could now argue that it's totally okay for you to go around and just, you know, massacre people and do whatever you want for your own good, but that's simply not how it works. Just because it is somewhere in your nature, that doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
Why am I
I
not here?
tweeted. Yeah. Did you not click the audio checkbox when you reshared your screen or something?
No, and it's... What in the hell is going on here? Unmute. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that.
This would support laws naturally religious and believe in God. This would support laws and policies that prioritize religious perspectives, but atheists will deny the scientific facts here, or they won't practice skepticism about liberal secular claims that all people are born as atheists and it's only indoctrination that makes people religious, and therefore...
2 wrongs, 2 lines. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's not. First off, that's not a scientific fact. If you say that, then you just really have no idea what scientific fact is supposed to mean here, or what science is. And yeah, I don't know. Just go ahead.
Therefore, religion should be barred in all matters of governance. Out liberal secular claims that all people are born as atheists and it's only indoctrination that makes people religious, and therefore religion should be barred in all matters of governance.
The people who proposed that religion should be barred from all matters of governance were not people who were staunch atheists who said, no, religion is not natural, religion is imposed on us, therefore we need to get rid of it and establish secular systems. No. Christian people themselves supported the idea of secularism, of separating state matters from religious matters.
Jesus himself. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Whose face is on that coin? That's what Jesus says. The prophet Jesus.
Yeah. So it was not atheists who came up with the idea, you know what, let's take religion completely out of government because religion is not natural. No, that is simply not how it happened. That's not how it evolved. That's not the history of secularism. That's not the history of anything. That's simply inaccurate. It's bullshit. I don't know what else to say about this. The idea there was that if you let religion rule over society, it will lead to to discriminations. based on the mere fact that people have different religious ideas and beliefs, and that they may at some point challenge the religious beliefs held by the government or by the people in charge, which will lead to societal unrest again. I mean, this is one of the main factors why secularism was proposed. It's not at all what he claims it is. This is just terrible. It's horrible. I don't know what else to say. It's horrible, man. It's embarrassing. It's stupidly embarrassing. How does this guy have an education in this field? How does this guy claim to be an expert? You know what the problem is? If we were sitting here and talking about this now, and he came into the room, to everything that we have just said, to us breaking down his arguments and pointing out how ridiculous they are, if he came in here, the first thing he said would be, "What is your degree? I have an education in philosophy. Who are you to talk? Be quiet." That would be his response. I know it. That's what he does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what's a shame, right, is that if in order to actually get through to him, you'd have to do all this. You'd have to do all this kind of like cognitive coaching, right? Because clearly there's all this other stuff going on. So it'd be like, it's all right. You're very smart. You'd have to do all this stuff just to get him to like calm down and listen to something. So here,
okay.
Do you think that this could be a problem for something that you've said? Just to get him just for 1 second to be like, yes, that's a problem, and to start changing his beliefs.
Maybe that's the approach that we need. Maybe you should, Nathan, you should jump into the Dawa seat and you should try this new approach with these Muslim apologists.
Well, it depends on the context. I mean, the one time I called into EF Dawa, I did manage to get Hamza to say some things that sort of were a bit funny and kind of conflicted with some of the things he was saying about Christianity. But
yeah. It'd be funny if you confronted Muhammad Hijab and said, "Muhammad Hijab, it's okay. I acknowledge that you are intelligent and you are strong.
Yeah.
But don't you think there is a problem?"
Yeah. You're a very masculine man. You could be a sheikh. You could be a desert warrior.
Another example, is promiscuity natural for women? If so, that fact would support the political ideology of sexual liberation, legalizing abortion, etc. But a ton of scientific evidence says that no, women are not naturally promiscuous, and there's a great deal of psychological and societal harm that comes with female promiscuity. But what is the response from proponents of a secular...
In the incel community, perhaps.
Is there scientific evidence? Is this the consensus, dear Daniel Haqiqatjou, or do you want us to I did this. I didn't.
I think there's a lot of Evo Psych about it, but a lot of that Evo Psych is very questionable. It's like back on the plains of Africa, bro. Like
yeah. I completely forgot that he makes this point, so I didn't prepare anything for that. But as I was listening to it, I quickly went on Google Scholar, and on the other pages that you use to look up research papers and searched for women in promiscuity, and you will be surprised, or maybe not surprised, to see that a lot of evidence actually says that women are naturally promiscuous, and even more so than men in many ways. So again, no evidence that he brought. He just said, well, plenty of evidence does this. Well, anybody can say that. Where is your actual evidence for that? And is this scientific evidence? Is this scientific research?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, there are some people, as I said, who tend to be evolutionary psychologists who will talk about women being less happy when they're more promiscuous, but they tend to be the sort of people who are going to appear on, like Jordan Peterson or maybe what's that guy, Modern Day Wisdom, Chris something or other, I've forgotten, Chris Williamson. But and they'll talk about the dating scene and stuff, and these people will be like, offering these evolutionary explanations about, but often. There's a lot of problems with what they're doing there, right? It according to me, at least, it's not that much better than what young Earth creationists do when they start saying, well, God put the tree rings there to kind of, test people with faith. They're just speculating about stuff that happened in our evolutionary past to explain various things in their experience. Often, not this isn't what the whole field is or something, but this is what a lot of the people coming to those conclusions do, and they just don't have testable hypotheses in any way, right? They don't have any empirical evidence for the types of things that they're saying, and then they don't actually have any ways of testing those hypotheses, so they're just completely unfalsifiable.
But I find this commentary funny. I just saw somebody here make a comment. Random Bro said, "Buddy said he uses Google Scholar." Ha ha ha. Random Bro, I don't think you know what Google Scholar is. You might use that as a joke to say, look, you're a Google Scholar, go to Google Scholar. But Google Scholar is an actual platform that you can use freely to access a lot of research, a lot of professional academic research. So while joking about something here, you are actually kind of revealing that you have no clue what you are talking about. I would suggest, maybe go on Google Scholar and Google Scholar, and then go on there and research for a topic that you like, and you will be redirected to a lot of academic research. I'm just saying this because I want to be nice to you and save you from further embarrassment, dear Random Bro, in the future. Thank you. All right, let's see.
Worldview. That's slut shaming. That's misogyny. You're just an incel. The conversation is shut down as hate.
I mean, that is what I said, in fairness. But I'm not just trying to shut down the conversation. Like, I like having these conversations with these people to try and change their minds.
Yeah. Exactly.
Typically investigate the anti-liberal position. Yet, when you poll atheists, 94% of atheists, according to Pew, think casual premarital sex is acceptable. Nearly 90% believe that abortion should be legal. You have near consensus.
Wait a second.
According to Pew, when you poll atheists, 94% of atheists, according to Pew, think casual premarital sex is acceptable.
So that's the problem. That's the problem. So many atheists think that casual premarital sex is is acceptable. And why are atheists doing this?
Why would they? This to me shows a complete sort of lack of self-awareness, right? Because he can't see that the only reasons that he has for thinking that it would be immoral are his religious reasons, which are not shared by atheists. Like, once that goes, if that's not there, why would what's wrong about it, right? Like, what?
Yeah. You would have to establish that that atheists are bound and obligated to abide by scientific research, that they all must agree on it, and then you must demonstrate that we actually have plenty of scientific evidence which clearly establishes without doubt that casual premarital sex is actually terribly harmful. I skipped a lot of factors there, but that's how you could start. But he did none of those things. Yeah. Man, that's just so dumb. It is so stupid.
Nearly 90% believe that abortion should be legal. You have near consensus from atheists on things that are not only not supported by science, but actually glaringly contradictory.
Did he say anything about why abortion is bad, and atheists still agree with it?
Yeah, I don't think so. But I mean, I was focusing on the chat a little bit, so I might have missed if he did. I don't think he did.
Everyone in the chat, tell me if I missed it, but I don't remember establishing in any way, whether you agree with it or not, that we have scientific evidence that abortion is actually very bad, and that therefore, atheists should not be okay with abortion. I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying I didn't hear it. So how is this suddenly relevant?
Predict the scientific evidence. No skepticism from atheists, though. Another example, pornography. The secular belief is that viewing porn is natural and nothing to be ashamed of. Nowadays, government programs are even...
Is that the secular belief?
Yeah, I mean, I know lots of secular people who, for example, take issue with porn, saying it exploits women, or
yes,
it's monetarily exploitative, Or there are some who take the position that it's, you know, unhealthy to consume lots of it because it's either going to be damaging to your relationship or your psychology. I mean, these aren't necessarily my views, but it's not that there's this just consensus, right? Of
there are organizations, movements which advocate for non-religious opposition to pornography because it is depicted as you know, abuse and harmful to human you know, mental health and all that, not based on any religious principles at all, advocated for by atheists and secular people. So this again is a completely false claim. Yeah. Another one. Yeah, okay, fine.
Including pornographic material in grade school curricula. But nowadays, government programs...
Example citation needed, including pornography. It depends what he means, right? Because he might just mean sex education by that, which I know they're against. But I mean, in terms of explicitly like porn, like no one's going around in schools like, you know, group bukkake or something on that.
Well, I remember when I arrived in 6th grade in biology, we watched a video which kind of simulates, you know, a man and a woman having intercourse, and then thereby, you know, it doesn't actually show a man and a woman. It's like, you know, like figures, and then it shows how that leads to pregnancy and birth and all that. I guess that should be seen as pornography, and I guess we watched porn in school. I don't know.
Right. I think that's how he's using it, and obviously, you know, the less people know about sex, the better, because then sex can be used as a tool by religion to control people in relationships and things.
And they can marry little children. That's
Viewing porn as natural and nothing to be ashamed of. Nowadays, government programs are even including pornographic material in grade school curricula.
Yeah, citation needed, but yeah.
But again, tons of evidence suggests that this is very unnatural.
Tons of evidence. Don't worry about it, bro.
Where is the tons
Trust
of
me,
evidence?
Bro. I've got it all. It's all back here.
Yeah.
Are you saying I'm not trustworthy?
and again, there is the whole claim, the whole appeal to nature. It's not natural. So what? Even if you establish that, so what?
But atheists express no skepticism in these issues and overwhelmingly believe that porn is morally acceptable. Atheists, where's your skepticism?
It's over there in the corner. I put it right there. It's sitting there.
It's watching porn in the bedroom.
Oh man.
Those who suggest banning porn are branded as irrational extremists and fundamentalists.
Really? I don't know. I don't know about that. Citation needed again. Yeah.
Now the third category, group differences. If groups are fundamentally different, then we usually think it's okay to discriminate. For example, can we have laws that discriminate against blind people when it comes to driving cars? Yes, that's justified because the blind cannot safely drive cars. But can we
pause a second, right? In terms of the claim he's made about if groups are fundamentally different, then we sometimes think it's okay to discriminate. So in the case of driving, right, eyesight's a relevant feature, but we don't now think, but it's okay for blind people to kill people, but sighted people can't, you know, that it depends what you're discriminating about, right? So that's going to be relevant.
And then the factor here in question for you know, blind people not driving is that if blind people drive, that will have severe consequences for the individual, the environment, other people, and so on. Which is why it is a necessity to restrict this. Please come and make the same argument for, I don't know, banning banning apostasy, for example.
Well, the direction he's going is he's gonna say that there are these specific differences between men and women, for example, such that we should legislate these differences between men and women. But I mean, in the case of so in the case of driving, right, it's clear to see how someone who can't see is going to be incapable of driving safely. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if we're talking about, say, differences in populations of men and women between IQ distribution, well, that's a distribution with a lot of overlap. So if you're going to say, so women shouldn't be in the workforce because their average IQ is lower than that of men or something, I mean, are you also advocating that men whose IQ is below the average of women shouldn't be, who are on that distribution curve, men who share the same features as women in that regard, or men whose testosterone levels are lower than women shouldn't be able to participate in the workforce. Men who have less androgen receptors and higher testosterone counts, should they not be able to participate in the workforce? So there's all these questions that are going to be raised by this kind of essentialist account of differences between the genders.
Yeah.
Against Canadians on this? No, because there's no relevant difference between Canadians and other groups when it comes to driving. So purported facts about group differences affect our understanding of discrimination. Are men and women different enough to justify gender-specific discrimination or unequal treatment in certain domains? All traditional
A huge slippery slope is going to come here.
religious systems say yes, but atheists argue this is misogyny and hatred of women.
Wrong. Atheists do not argue that. Wrong. False statement again.
And he's like, why? Right? It's because you're advocating for beating women. That's why.
Yeah.
I guess say that's bad, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say you can't pick out a relevant feature between men and women that makes it okay to beat up women.
Yeah.
Why? They claim it's because men and women are functionally the same in terms of IQ, psychology, physical capacity, emotional tendencies, etc.
Wrong. Atheists do not claim that, number one. Secondly, they have different explanations why.
Exactly. Yeah, you can say that there are differences in IQ and explain those differences, right, in different ways. This isn't what I believe, but one candidate explanation could be that women receive, different nutrition or something than men, and so they have different IQ.
We should try to pause less, although it's just too hard because of this. Of the subject matter here.
Of course, plenty of science says otherwise. So where is the skepticism from atheists? Further,
I think a lot of scientific research says that women have, breasts, for example. But unfortunately, atheists do not want to accept this. Where's their consistency? Where's their skepticism?
A lot of scientific research says the moon has not split in two, but where's your skepticism?
regime aggressively fabricates facts. The liberal consensus, for example, is that the only reason that women don't have as much success in math, science, and business as men is that women are subject to discrimination. It is not because of IQ distribution or women having less testosterone that makes them less competitive. No, it's because they're unfairly discriminated against by men.
Which may be a factor, and many people may argue that and have a point, but is that what atheists and what the secular establishment really thinks? And is that relevant to how atheists are inconsistent? I don't know.
His use of is only because of is like doing a lot of work there, right? Because you can say, well, there are these IQ differences, so it's perfectly expected that we'd see a bit of a difference between the success of men and women in various fields, because you're going to get more men who have these extremely high IQs or whatever. But you could say still the actual distribution of men and women that we have, achieving this success doesn't reflect the IQ differences. So there's these extra factors like, prejudice and things like that have been at least historically at work in certain fields.
But Nathan, you don't know what you're talking about, because Chanel over there believes that that we should treat everybody equally because of those reasons, and therefore you agree with that too, and you are being inconsistent here. I'm sorry.
And where's my skepticism?
Where's your skepticism?
I love this phrase, the rhetorical phrase at the end of every point that he makes. Where's your skepticism, atheists?
I dropped it somewhere. I don't know.
That is fabricating facts about causation to support a political
What a big irony. That's what he's doing all the time.
ideology while ignoring all the contravening scientific evidence. But this is not...
Oh, sorry, just to mention as well, the thing about... The testosterone stuff is really interesting, like about whether testosterone actually, how accurately it predicts, how competitive and stuff people are going to be, because there's in biology, people's firstly testosterone in the blood is not necessarily representative of the amount of hormone that's affecting, you know, various like organs and things and what's going on, because that depends on the androgen receptors in cells. But also the testosterone, the kind of causal explanation can be backwards, because sometimes testosterone count, you know, if there's like a more aggressive male or something, for example, who's around in some species, I don't know about humans, testosterone amount then goes down. And then if you remove, you know, that more aggressive male from the environment, then testosterone in the blood goes up and stuff. So the order of explanation there isn't that, you know, the fish is like becoming the fish is like naturally competitive because of the testosterone or something. It's actually the other way around. So there's a lot of nuance in the biological debate, right, about what exactly there's a lot of these folk notions, right, that hang around of the connections between things like testosterone and competitiveness, and then how that justifies, you know, the behavior of toxic Wall Street culture or something, right? Like, well, it's just testosterone dictates that they behave that way. So, but actually, what's going on is very complex, and you can't just reduce it all to like.
Yeah. I wanted to say something about this, but I just got distracted by the fact that I just checked the lines that I made, and I swear I didn't cheat here. But
it's too bright. Oh, there we go.
I counted 33 or 34 or something like that, and we are 12 minutes into it, and.
Because scientific facts alone are not enough to bring people to a moral consensus about laws and social policy.
You don't say. Whoa.
Yeah, what you need, the ingredient that you're missing, is the belief that some guy called Muhammad, you know, dictated the Quran in a cave. That'll sort it all out.
Yeah.
But this is not surprising, because scientific facts alone are not enough to bring people to a moral consensus about laws and social policy.
Wow.
Of course, atheists, as proponents of this secular system, cannot admit that this is what is happening. And that
What?
I mean, that's what we've been saying for 12 minutes. Well, we've been saying it for an hour and a half, sorry, not for 12 minutes.
Did I just hear the right thing? Did I just hear what I really heard? Or
atheists, as
did you just really say that?
proponents of this secular laws and social policy. Of course, atheists, as proponents of this secular system, cannot admit that this is what is happening, and that's why.
Are you kidding me, man? Are you kidding me? Okay, I'm sorry. I need to go back to this and listen to what he is actually claiming here.
Surprising, because scientific facts alone are not enough to bring people to a moral consensus about laws and social policy.
Okay, scientific consensus is not enough.
Of course, atheists, as proponents of this secular system, cannot admit that this is what is happening, and that's why atheists are selective.
But atheists cannot admit that science alone is not enough to establish.
And how many atheists have you asked? You know, like, because I mean, I think there are probably some, but in terms of naming one, right, I can't actually name one that actually thinks that. Though
I've never heard of I've never heard of an atheist who actually believes that. I've never heard of an atheist who does not want to admit that science alone is not enough to, you know, come to certain, you know, laws and moral conclusions and all that. It is, oh my, this is so ridiculously idiotic. This guy, does this guy ever sit down and actually think about the things that he says and holds? I mean, his title for his YouTube channel is Muslim Skeptic. Does he ever? Where is your skepticism? where is your skepticism? Where is your basic skepticism, man? Oh my. Are there Muslims here who are fans of Daniel Haqiqatjou? Are they watching this? And do you think that he's right? Do you actually think Daniel Haqiqatjou makes sense here? I mean, this is the most idiotic thing that I have heard today, and maybe in a long time.
What's this thing he's got going on behind him as well? Is that like the name of Allah or something in Arabic writing?
It is Allah, and then there's a lot of writing and art form. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was a clock at first, and I was like...
Another example.
It was a what?
I thought it was a clock at first, like
oh, yeah.
a big telling the time.
Could have been.
But yeah.
should same-sex marriage be legal? An overwhelming consensus of atheists, 92%, say yes. And if you ask them, they'll say that their support for it is based on the scientific fact that homosexual marriage is exactly the same as heterosexual.
What the fuck are you talking about?
how
I'm
even could
sorry.
that-
I am sorry, but show me that
Based on the scientific fact that be legal. An overwhelming consensus of atheists, 92%, say yes. And if you ask them, they'll say that their support for it is based on the scientific fact that homosexual marriage is exactly the same as heterosexual marriage.
So, okay, over 90% say that that homosexual marriage is okay. And if you ask them, they say that this is because it is scientifically established that homosexual marriage is just like heterosexual marriage. I would really like to see the data for that, of people actually believing that and saying that as their reasoning for that. Where's the data?
It just seems, I mean, it's just clearly not true, right? In virtue of one being homosexual marriage and one being heterosexual marriage. I mean, both of those are different in virtue of what they are. Like, you know, one is between a man and a woman, and one's between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman. So they're at least different in as far as that. I think the point that atheists want to make is that they're not morally different, right? So the point is that, you know, they both can be good and they both can be bad. You can have, like, you know, the things that make it good or bad are going to be the interpersonal relationships between these people, and not what their, you know, what their sexes and genders are.
Yeah. TP Bear said Daniel's sources, trust me, bro. I mean, that's what it looks like right now. Really. I don't think we will ever see a source. Please, Daniel or anybody else, if you want to back this up and support Daniel's argument here and show me the source in which you will find that evidence for that, I would love to see it. And if I see it, I will make a video in which I will say, I apologize. I have to admit that this is actually true. So.
I mean, he might as well say 4 out of 5 dentists agree or something, right?
Therefore, it would be morally wrong to discriminate against same-sex couples. But much evidence shows that homosexual marriage is associated with mental illness, child abuse, domestic violence, etc. But follow that line of reasoning, and atheists scream, that's homophobic, that's hate speech, that's extremism, and you will be banned from social media, academia, and the political...
Okay. He might be right about certain statistics regarding you know, homosexual marriages and how they impact you know, a family, but I don't think that I don't think his conclusion here again follows from the premises and from the supposed facts that he presented at all. It is a matter that should be addressed, that should be discussed, that should be explored. But again, the entire reason he brings this up is there is a problem, and if we bring this problem up, then we are banned from social media and blocked from things. So, atheists, where is your skepticism?
Yeah.
How do you get from that point to that point? It's like,
yeah, it's kind of like I don't know. I can't think of a funny enough analogy to make. I don't know. Like I keep going to the grocery store and just shouting at grannies that they're stupid or something, and they've kicked me out the store. So, atheists, where is your skepticism? It's like, you know, something like that.
oh man.
Domain as a whole. Where is your skepticism on this issue, atheists? The fourth category.
She said it again. Oh,
conspiracy theorists. Atheists have no problem believing that the governments around the world routinely commit election fraud, conduct false flags, falsely revise history in order to support their political regimes, manipulate public health crises to expand control, do political assassinations. But if you accuse the US or Western liberal governments of doing these things, you get blasted as a conspiracy theorist about...
What in the world does this have to do with the debate topic?
I think where it's coming from, right, is something that people who I'm friends with who are sympathetic towards Islam, at least, you know, they're often very concerned about US intervention in the Middle East, and you know, and there are some legitimate concerns there. But sometimes that can go into, conspiracy theory territory. I mean, there's a lot of dodgy stuff the US has done intervening in foreign affairs, but there can also be, as if, everyone in the US conspired in some like Christian conspiracy theory or something to like, damage Islam. And there can be these weird, what I consider to be weird beliefs that, people have about political influence and stuff. And I think he's saying, well, look, some of these are true. So, where's your skepticism about that, atheist? Because you don't believe. But I mean, the problem with that is just that a lot of atheists, are sympathetic towards like, yeah, the US government has been pretty dodgy and done some dodgy things. It depends on the claim, right? I mean, most atheists aren't going to agree with you if you're going down like some vaccine skepticism or something, or some just some massive conspiracy. But if you're just going to say, yeah, like the US interfered in government elections or hosted, phony elections in various governments to get leaders they wanted in or whatever, then a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, they did do that. That's bad.
I mean, I just had a conversation about that yesterday. It's a well-known fact that it is part of history, of American history, that meddling in international relationships and all that was done at a point in history, especially during the Cold War era. Lots of stuff was going on. It's all demonstrated. It's all proven. It's quite understandable that today there is still meddling going on in other people's businesses. Some justified, some unjustified. It is established. Look, I'm an atheist, and I'm saying this. And what are we not admitting here?
Liberal governments of doing these things, you get blasted as political regimes manipulate public health crises to expand control, do political assassinations. But
so that one, the manipulate public health crises, I think he's specifically trying to refer to COVID there.
Yeah.
And
I have heard of plenty of. I know an atheist, a very, staunch atheist who believes that who doesn't even believe that germs cause problems. He doesn't believe in diseases that are like transmitted from one to the other. He believes that COVID is entirely a man-made disease, and that vaccines are meant to control and to debilitate you and all of those things. There are lots of people from different walks of life and different worldviews who believe in all kinds of things. So again, you might say, why do those people who hold those beliefs? Why don't they question themselves? But you can't sit down and say, so atheists, why do you not accept that liberal governments are involved in conspiracies? Where's your skepticism? Therefore, atheists are inconsistent. That's simply stupid.
Yeah, and for each of these conspiracy theories he commits himself to, you can kind of run it the other way, right? You can kind of say, well, look, this conspiracy theory is clearly wrong, but Muslims believe it. So Muslims, where is your skepticism, right? And that's going to be a problem for each of these that he kind of lists.
Yeah, where's your skepticism, man? Where is your skepticism?
Western liberal governments of doing these things, you get blasted as a conspiracy theorist about conspiracy theorist or even a disinformation agent who needs to be silenced.
This is very funny because he and maybe not he, but many of his fellow believers and fans frequently accuse people like me of being agents or being secretly funded by Israel and by Israel and by governments and organizations. There was just recently a YouTuber who made a video in which he claimed that I and other ex-Muslims, we receive large fundings from the Israel lobby and from the Israeli government. And I'm just here thinking, dude, I can't get, I need new equipment. I can't get anything. I wish I had Israeli funding. Oh my God. So ridiculous.
Basically, any conspiracy theory about non-liberal regimes, no problem. But conspiracies about liberal regimes like the US, we can't have that because that undermines any consensus about the goodness of the liberal world order. Where is your skepticism on these issues, atheists?
Okay, summary, that was 14
Well, yeah,
minutes.
I think he goes over, I think, a bit here. I don't think this is the end of his speech yet. Yeah.
Can I just finish the last paragraph?
We'll do the same for T-Jump in terms of giving an extra 20 seconds.
Okay.
Go for it.
So these are 4 areas where atheists don't practice the same skepticism they have for religion. It's not just that atheists have different values and that's what's causing the difference. It's
Well,
that
that's what I think it could be. That's precisely what I think it could be. But I mean,
Yeah.
on false facts that support their liberal secularism and shut down everything that contravenes it. This is selective skepticism.
Thank you very
Okay, so that was a 15-minute, almost 15-minute opening statement about why atheism, or 10 minutes, I don't know, why atheists are inconsistent, and there is no proper argument here, which there are no proper premises here, which comes to the conclusion that atheists are inconsistent. I mean, I could argue against it if the arguments actually followed, if he actually did establish proper premises and conclusions to argue why atheists are inconsistent. He simply did not. It is entirely full of so many fallacies, entirely disconnected all over the place. And if you try to put it together as you actually did, it is incredibly stupid and simply wrong.
yeah, he provided one invalid argument, the vast majority of the premises for which were quite clearly false. In terms of what he said, it seems that his main point is just to claim that atheists only believe the scientific facts, and then to point to facts that aren't scientific that atheists believe, and kind of say, haha, gotcha, where is the skepticism, atheists, over and over again, you know.
Yeah.
No,
that's actually funny. His entire opening speech is built on one argument, which is atheists only accept scientific facts. That is already completely wrong. Therefore, I'm sorry, your entire opening speech is complete nonsense.
I mean, that's all that needs to be done. Again, yeah. I mean, there's numerous other problems with what he's, but yeah, that's the main one.
But you wanted to say more. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
Well, no, so I was just gonna say for the several the several kind of claims that he points to, right, to say, well, here's something that atheists believe. Often they're just a mischaracterization of what atheists do actually think about those things, or sometimes they're just it was just a false claim, right? Like the ones about women's mental health in the workplace and things like this. I mean, where he's just saying, look, I've got all the statistics, bro, that backs up what I'm saying, but I mean, none of this was substantiated. It's not clear that any of it was true. So it's not clear that these even are examples of things that atheists believe, and things that are in fact, like scientific facts that atheists get wrong or something.
I actually did one thing as I was watching it. There is later during the debate, there is a point where Daniel repeats this whole idea that atheists consensually agree. He says there is there's consensus among atheists that abortion should be illegal in all cases. T-Jump then jumps in and says, that doesn't sound right to me. That can't be true. No, okay. He says precisely. Daniel says 87% of atheists agree that abortion should be legal in all cases. And T-Jump says that doesn't sound right. I don't think that's really true. Is it all? And Daniel insists on it and says, no, it's definitely. Yeah, I gave you the source. It's 87% of atheists agree that abortion is okay in all cases. So since he argued so firmly, I wanted to go into the research that he was referencing, which is a Pew research.
You have to zoom in one more if you can,
and look at the actual data. This is the research that he's actually referencing. So what happened is T-Jump said it can't be in all cases, 87%. And Daniel Haqiqatjou insisted no, it is in all cases. Here is what's actually happening. Of atheists who were polled, 87% agreed abortion should be legal in all/most cases. It says all/most cases. Is very different from saying all cases. If you
because I would answer yes to that, and I might answer no to the all cases, right? And I might answer yes to all/most.
And look, it is even broken down here. I mean, you don't even have to look far. Atheists, 87%, all or most. And then here it is broken down into legal in all cases and legal in most cases. Now let's see what that is. In all cases is 50%. In most cases is 37%. Those two together are 87%. Boom. This is just one of those things that he confidently comes here and argues and says, "No, this is right. No, I give you the evidence. You're just making things up." That's what he says. But if you look at the actual evidence, it is completely wrong. He's misrepresenting it very clearly. He's completely misrepresenting it. And this is just one example of many where Daniel Haqiqatjou repeatedly does this. He goes on debates, makes these confident claims. And if you actually look at the data, it's not right at all.
What are the numbers for Muslims there, by the way, just out of curiosity? 55 in most, all/most, is that?
Wait a minute, what? Muslims? 55?
So look, it's not even clear that being a Muslim actually really guarantees, the kind of conclusion he wants people to get to.
I think this is about Muslims in America, I think, and Muslims in America, 55% of Muslims in America agree that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. Wow. Daniel Haqiqatjou, Muslims, where is your
skepticism?
Where is the skepticism? Where is the consistency? I didn't even pay attention to this. That's a good catch. That is funny, dude. His solution is Islam. See here. Wow.
Yeah, right.
Wow. This is...
But of course, it's the infection of the liberal mind virus.
Yeah. Liberal. It's very funny. I had a discussion with him before, in which I asked him why he lives in America, because he depicts America and liberalism as this behemoth and it's evil and Islam is the solution to all the problems. And I asked him, where do you live? And he was like, in America. And then I kept asking him, why are you not moving to an Islamic country? And he kept offering different excuses why. And one of them was, because where am I supposed to go if I move to Saudi Arabia? Liberalism has an impact. Liberalism has them all in their grip, and they can't even properly, exercise Islamic laws, because then the liberal powers will, interfere and all that. That's why I can't move to Saudi Arabia, but and then you choose to live in America, the ultimate evil.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like if you put them all on a scale of sort of most Islamized country to kind of least, if Islamized is even the right word, it's like you're not going to be pointing at America at the end of it. You're going to be pointing to one of those.
Yeah. I mean, any country that is Muslim would be a better choice on your scale than America. But you say, well, those countries are just not perfect Islamic, therefore, I'm here in this ultimate evil. I'm in hell. Yeah. What am I supposed to do?
So what happens to your consensus, though? Because it's supposed to be that when the country becomes Islamic, when everyone's a Muslim, then you get this political consensus, right? And you just get the truth, and all your problems go away.
Yeah, no, that's why. I mean, if in Saudi Arabia, for example, the majority is Muslim, and therefore they all have consensus, and they're consistent and skeptical. Therefore, Saudi Arabia is a perfect Islamic state, of course. But unfortunately, because of liberalism, it's like liberalism doesn't want you to be consistent. That's the problem. Man. This was. I didn't realize we have been live for 2 hours already.
Yeah.
This is just so stupid. I don't know.
I occasionally, when I'm listening to what he says, right, it's so stupid that I have this sort of moment where I think, why am I taking this so seriously? I try and I'm moving all the gears in my mind, trying to make sense of what he's saying, come up with, and then I just have these moments where I look at myself like, what the hell are you doing? That was just ridiculously dumb.
That's what we do. Well, here is the issue. You and I, we sit here. People sit here and watch this, and I'm sure plenty of people who are not Muslims watch this debate and have similar reactions and think, what the hell are you talking about, man? This is so ridiculously idiotic. But the people of his mindset, the Islamists and the Muslims who follow him, they think that he makes a lot of sense. They think he is actually really, really good, and he destroys us. They think that he wipes the floor with us and with T-Jump and all the others, and he destroys and humiliates us and all that. That's what they think. I mean, and then that makes me sit down and think, all those people take him so seriously, although he's clearly full of crap. Should I now sit down and worry about that and therefore try to show people that he does not make sense at all? Or should I just think, hey, those people are, I'm sorry, very stupid, even in very large numbers, and it's just not of my concern anymore. So
Yeah, or yeah, just there's something going wrong there. I mean, yeah, it's and it's all the, you know, this emphasis on the humiliation and stuff. You know, like you say, the mopping, they really want it to be almost, it's almost like sexually perverse, right? It's like they want to see the opposition just humiliated and destroyed in this way, and they want their heroes to be these people who are, you know, super masculine and strong and all those things. This is actually why it probably won't ever happen in reality now, and I might need knee surgery because I've got like a screw that's loose or something. But like I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And Mohammed Hijab does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because he has this really cringy video as a white belt where he's like, the fight is on, and there's this sort of like music in the background, and it's super cringy to watch for me. But I always thought it would be really funny to have like a grappling match with Mohammed Hijab and like absolutely dominate him, but wearing something like really gay, because it would just upset it would upset, you know, like this kind of idea of that, you know, these people have to be so masculine and strong and stuff so much to see him getting like physically dominated, but by someone who is like performing as a raging homosexual.
That's a funny idea. You should think about doing that.
Well, I'd love to, but I don't know quite how to set it up. The same with like you know, the grape eating guy. What's his name?
Ali
Dawah. Yeah.
Oh, you actually tried to review by debate with him. And,
It's so stupid.
What's the problem? Why are these Muslim apologists so terrible?
Is it, bro? Is it? It's like this all. It's like so, you know, it's like so on edge, as if it's like, chill out, like take a deep breath.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, I don't know if we have time to go further into T-Jump's opening speech, although I really wanted to hear more of it. But maybe we can just have a glimpse. Do you have time?
Yeah, I do. I don't have any time stamps though to but yeah, feel free to jump around if there's things in your mind that you want to.
Yeah.
Very much for that opening statement, Daniel, and debates on Welcome. Example. Next.
I never talked about the fact that my face is on here on this stream as well. I never even.
Yeah, right.
It's funny.
Who's that guy that have you debated him yet?
That strange fellow is some person called the Muslim Apologist, and he insisted that I am scared of him, which is why I will never debate him. So I contacted James and said, "Hey, James, please arrange a debate between him and me." And then he was like, "Okay, I'll get back to you." He said, apparently the Muslim apologist said, "I'll get back when I'm ready." Then he got back, and finally we arranged it, and we will have a debate next week. So that will be very interesting. And the topic will be, is Islam dangerous? Yeah, so.
Next week, apostate prophet and Muslim apologist debate whether or not Islam is harmful. You don't want to miss that one. Hit that subscribe button. And with that, we're going to kick it over.
T-Jump fucking yawn. It's like yawning great.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. As always, appreciate being here.
He probably thinks, "What the hell am I getting into here? Like, why did I agree to this?"
Yeah. I just always find it funny, like T-Jump's facial expressions and things. Just, you know, James is like, "You don't want to miss that next week." He's like, "Oh."
I have no idea.
I mean, he's not doing it deliberately.
Look at.
Thanks for inviting me on. As always, appreciate being here. I have no idea how pretty much anything he said has to do with the topic. Like I'm not the other atheist. If your argument is that some
Isn't that a fantastic, fantastic beginning to a response to everything Daniel just said?
It is, but the problem is that then the move that happens dialectically, right, is to say, well, the reason he doesn't understand what he's saying is because of a comprehension issue with him, and he's stupid.
Oh yeah,
and that's why he doesn't understand, rather than it being because I've just said a bunch of gibberish for like. But I agree. Yeah,
are inconsistent. Like, duh, atheists are people too. Hashtag people too. But in the context of a God, they're not adding any extra skepticism. So, for example, I wrote an epistemology, a theory of knowledge. To summarize, its conceptual claims require conceptual evidence, empirical claims require empirical evidence, and metaphysical claims require metaphysical evidence. I apply all claims to that exact same standard, including all the things you listed. Women, on average, have a bell curve lower IQ than men. We know this. Same with physical strength. That's why they don't do as well in like chess and win as many Nobel prizes. Like, it's a fact.
Yeah. By the way, the data that they're referencing, I guess I could bring it up. The whole difference between men and women in terms of IQ and the bell curve difference. It's not even like a huge deal. The implication of it is not, that men and women are on significantly different levels in terms of IQ. It's just that the distribution of IQ levels among the female population and the male population is different, where the male population has a more spread out bell curve, whereas the female population, or the other way around. I'm not sure how it is exactly.
Yeah, I think there's maybe more deviation in the male curve, but I think maybe I'm wrong about that actually. But that there's a lot of things that can be said about that, right? You can kind of accept that, and even asking, well, what is it that psychologists are measuring, right, when they do IQ tests? Because the point of an IQ test is obviously to try and get at, there's this ordinary thing we talk about called intelligence, how intelligent people are, and psychologists have tried to come up with some way to quantify how intelligent people are, right? And they've done this by coming up with various tests which are supposed to measure cognitive tasks across across various different cognitive skills. But you can even say, well, that's not really what's meant by intelligence. Then there's things about people being able to improve their IQ tests over time, improve their IQ over time by taking more tests, or improve what's supposed to be what it's supposed to be measuring, general intelligence, right? By doing various things like playing strategy games, even. There's some studies on people in like old people's homes that playing strategy games versus a control, and that then their IQ scores improving without there being enough.
That's the thing. Like, people like Daniel Haqiqatjou make it look like women are.
It's an inner essence.
Yeah, women are inherently very stupid, and that there's a huge IQ difference between men and women, and men are just naturally much more intelligent, which is why they should be in charge and doing things. That's simply not how it is. I find it very funny because he says this is extremely funny to me. I study psychology. I took plenty of psychology courses. He is here saying that liberal systems and secular systems and atheists are not consistent because they will never accept these facts. I learned in my psychology courses that there is a difference between male and female intelligence IQ levels.
Right.
And I learned this in my psychology courses here in America. In the liberal America. Yeah, this is where I learned that. I learned that the findings on IQ levels differ among female and male humans, and that there are various explanations for the causes of these and the implications of these, and that women and men tend to be more intelligent or less intelligent in different fields, and also that this is not a blanket statement which is true for all women or for all men. It could be that a woman is significantly smarter, significantly more intelligent, and much better in all fields than a random man, for example. So I learned this in a psychology course in the evil, corrupt, horrible West in America, man.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say.
And it's not even clear. And again, in terms of the types of claims he wants to make, right? Suppose that there are these different IQs that are entirely determined by gender, and people are kind of trapped with them or something. And like, how do any of the claims that he wants to establish about like it being okay to beat women, or the types of relationships they should be in, or them not going in the workplace, how do they follow from, you know, getting this sort of contentious difference in IQ, and how you explain that? How, even if you get all those things, how does any of that stuff follow the religious claims?
Well, he has to argue that women are less intelligent because it's just the Islamic belief, as he also believes that Muhammad himself said that women are deficient in intelligence.
Right.
So how can you argue with that? No.
What was Muhammad's IQ?
He probably wasn't. I mean, Daniel Haqiqatjou is more intelligent than Muhammad was, probably. So I don't know if you want to take that as a compliment, Daniel, or not. But that's the problem, I guess.
Fact. Yes, we know this. It's not debated. It's a fact. So I don't know what you're even talking about when you're saying we don't acknowledge these facts. We do.
Exactly, we do.
So it's just not true. So if you're saying that some atheists out there are inconsistent, well, that's great. I can't talk about those because I'm not them, but I'm not. I'm an atheist. I am not inconsistent. Therefore, the premise is false. Atheists are consistent skeptics. So I don't know where else to go with that. It's pretty simple. I have a consistent epistemology. I apply it to all things. Therefore, atheists are consistent skeptics. Debunked.
You got it. Well, John.
That's it. That was his opening statement.
Yeah, right. And the difference in time as well. You know, like that Daniel needs all the wasting everyone's time with his invalid argument, right, and making all these points and the rhetoric and stuff, and you know, Tom can just express it in those 2 minutes. I do think that Tom's technically conceding the debate in a way, right? Because if are atheists consistent skeptics means all atheists, then maybe he's saying yeah, sure, some. But I mean, yeah.
But his response is also sounds problematic because he says no, atheists are consistent skeptics, so debunked. But I mean, if we go by the same standard, that is also not entirely true, right? But he would just be referring to certain atheists, and they are consistent. So I just don't understand why they even agreed to such a debate title. It's like, what are you supposed to?
Yeah, it's unhelpful.
Yeah. But
into the 5-minute rebuttal, so each side will get 5 minutes.
I think really what's going on, right, is that from Daniel's point of view, he just wants to be able to point at any given atheist and say that they're irrational, and so any topic that's going to allow him to do that is, you know, is a good one to go to. So just being able to kind of sling mud across at the other side and say, yeah, you're irrational, right?
Well, he also does this thing, like he debates with Christians whether Islam is bad or Christianity, and then the entire point of his opening speech is about how the West is corrupt and evil, and Islam is the solution, and Christians don't do anything to tackle the evil. Therefore, Islam is good, and that's his entire method. You know?
For the opening statements. With that, we also want to say, folks, if you have so
the topic is, are atheists consistent skeptics? So it's referring to atheists as a group, not just is
atheists are another group.
Jump a consistent skeptic. That wasn't the topic of the debate. We're talking about atheists, and the whole point of
I don't know.
My argument.
But the thing is, right, this is in a way going to undermine when he says his question, where is your skepticism, atheists, right? Well, who's he addressing then? If atheists, if it's referring to a group, you can't just address a group, right? Like, you know, where's your you have to address individuals within that group, and then he'd have to change everything that he's saying and be like, well, so for those of you who are inconsistent, and then the nuance, right? You introduce the nuance, and then it's not as easy to just stereotype the other group as all being these irrational morons, because you have to introduce that nuance into the way you talk.
Well, what's funny is he also says, I mean, his argument is that, for example, atheists say, or atheists agree
Yeah.
that maximizing freedom is like they all want to maximize freedom. But here is the issue. He contradicts himself, because during his presentation, he clearly references the Soviet Union and China and argues that they are atheists and that they have these, these morally evil rules which suppress the population and all that. I mean, you are clearly demonstrating here that two primary examples which you present for atheists do not agree and do not argue that maximizing freedom is necessary. But on the other hand, you are saying that this is what atheists consensually agree on. So you are contradicting yourself here, you idiot.
Yeah, it's just a mess, and it's partly brought about by the debate topic, which maybe could have been something a bit clearer. But I think, I don't know, you're not gonna. It's difficult to. You need some degree of charity, right, to clarify. So suppose you actually disagree about whether or not atheists are skeptics. You need someone who's just not going to be a total ass to you, who's going to be like, yeah, okay, there's some nuance in the question, not someone who's just looking for any opportunity to pounce and make you look ridiculous, whatever. And that's just not here. So that kind of guides the way, that the disagreement has to go.
Yeah. The most funny part about Daniel is his use of strawman arguments when he doesn't like or doesn't know what to answer, said Diana. That's why I titled this stream "The Fallacies of Daniel Haqiqatjou," because I mean that's all I see whenever this guy debates. And I have seen Muslim debaters who did a great job. Like, for example, Abdullah Andalusi is a Muslim debater. He recently had a debate with Matt Dillahunty about God, and I thought he was quite thorough with his reasoning and was quite consistent, and actually seemed to make sense. Although I would argue that his conclusions were wrong, and some of the information that he presented about the universe and science were wrong. But I can say that. But with Daniel Haqiqatjou here, it is just all I hear are fallacies, fallacies, fallacies after fallacies. Nothing is connected, and everything is all over the place. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it, right? Everything
Where's your
is all over the place.
skepticism? Yeah. Where's your skepticism?
But it all seems to stem from it all just stems from this insecurity and need to be like rational and taken seriously and viewed in this particular way. It's like, just chill out. Maybe you could have a good conversation with someone about some of these things.
Yeah, I don't think we need to watch the rebuttal here anymore. We already got it.
You should ask for your money back.
Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt.
Isn't it things can cause harm and be moral? Things. It's not a thing.
Wait. I need to hear that. What was that?
Something. No. You can have evidence that something is wrong, and there'll be other evidence that contravenes that. And
okay, this is actually an important point. So
when you ask the question, I'm trying to answer your question. Yeah, you ask the question, I'm answering your question. So don't interrupt.
What do the things you listed? What do they have to do with morality? Because you said atheists
is
have
the issue of sexual promiscuity a moral issue or not? That's how it has to do with morality. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
But what is the evidence you provided? You didn't provide any evidence that it's not moral.
I'm saying that this is a conversation about facts. So there are plenty of facts to say that sexual promiscuity causes harm.
Nice. What does that have to do with morality?
You don't understand how harm has something to do with morality?
Not in the context of what you're saying, no. So you said that atheists have agreement that sexual promiscuity is perfectly moral. I agree. But that has nothing to do with whether or not it's harmful. So things can be moral regardless of whether or not they're harmful. Like, for example, it could be perfectly moral to do drugs or whatever, even if it harms you. That's totally fine. It doesn't matter if it causes harm. The fact that something causes harm doesn't make it moral or immoral. It's a
the fact that something causes harm is evidence that it's immoral.
Where the hell did you get your philosophy degree from? Who the hell knows about philosophy and argues that by definition, it is understandable that if something is harmful, it is immoral? This may be your perspective or how you view certain perspectives, but how in the world can you argue that is a fact, that this is unanimous, that if something is harmful, it is therefore morally wrong? That is stupid. Not everybody has the same perception of morality. Not everybody believes in such a concept. I would say most people don't strictly follow such a system where they say if something is harmful, then it is morally wrong. You will find that many people follow such ideas. And certainly in Islam, you have this black and white idea of everything that is good is must be done and everything that is bad must be banned. But that is not how the world functions. That is not how the moral framework, how the moral universe functions. And he should know this as somebody who studied philosophy. This is just ridiculously stupid. I don't understand how this guy even gets here.
Yeah, I think the big issue for him is just how this is going to be in tension with so many other parts of his worldview and things he believes, right? So, like, I do disagree with T-Jump's moral theory, and like personally, I think that things like harm are kind of moral properties in the sense that their presence makes certain things wrong.
Mhm.
But the problem is if you're going to grant that there are certain properties that make certain states of affairs intrinsically right or wrong, like harm, for example. Well, then, if those properties are present where Islam or religion is something's present, well, then that's going to be intrinsically wrong, right? Regardless of what the opinion of a god is, because it's intrinsically wrong. You're saying that the wrong-making property there is the harm that it does. So it doesn't actually matter if a god thinks that it's good. What matters there is that there's harm being caused, right? And that's going to be in tension, I think, with a lot of his beliefs sort of further downstream about about how he grounds morality from an Islamic point of view. And the harms that Islam does cause, various wars and whatever else.
Yeah, he has this expectation of society, of people to sit down and say, okay, we need to judge what is morally right and what is morally wrong. So doing drugs is harmful, therefore it is morally wrong, therefore we should ban it. But that's not how humans function. That's not how humans function, how governments operate, how people make laws. People don't abide by a religious system. He should understand this when he talks about secularism, by a system where they have this strict doctrine, where they have this strict dogma, where they say whatever harms us is morally wrong and will be banned. No, humans come to different conclusions and make different laws based on many different factors. They might say smoking is harmful, but we could ban smoking altogether. But banning smoking altogether might cause economic problems. Many people might not agree to it, and they may be very angry, and lots of unrest would be caused. There would be instability. It's people's freedom if they want to harm themselves. It's none of our business, and so on. There are lots of ideas that people employ in order to then come together and make certain laws. It is not just harmful, morally wrong, banned. That's not how society functions, or how people are supposed to function.
There's this different question about, should we legislate, all of the kind of like moral beliefs that we have, right? And I certainly wouldn't agree with that. There's all sorts of things that I think are wrong, but shouldn't be, legislated against. Like, I think it might be, it's wrong for someone to let themselves become really obese or something, right? For example, I might say that. But I don't think it should be made illegal for someone to become really obese.
Yeah. Oh, it's. This is actually we are being we are applying our skepticism and our our ideas of thinking and judging freely and being free and saying, what, I personally think doing smoking crack every day is, maybe that's a bad example, I don't know. But smoking weed 24/7 is probably a very dumb idea and will make you a very dysfunctional person. But you know what?
So it's wrong in that sense.
But if you want to go and do that, what am I going to do? Just go do it. But I would advise against it. That's what I would say. And that's where I apply my ideas of individualism and freedom and skepticism and all that, because I say I should not be the one who bans that, because I know that in the background it will still happen. It will not solve anything. It will just cause societal problems, which will explode, from different places. We will not solve this problem through me cracking down on you and banning that. I think it's bad, but educate yourself. That's all I can do. And here I am not being an inconsistent atheist who abandons his skepticism. No, I'm just being a rational human being who thinks freely. Daniel, where is your skepticism?
Right. And something that's sort of, this is, we're talking maybe too much about various, but you know, even of the scientific claims that there are, it's worth noting that there are inconsistencies in our best scientific theories, right? So someone who actually believes only all the scientific facts is actually going to themselves be irrational in a sense, because that all sorts of scientific theories actually contradict in various places, because we don't have a complete, that, you know, that those are the places where scientists think, well, there's something curious going on here, right? And I'm going to have to modify my theory in some way, revise it. So.
He's also acting like all humans are supposed to be moral realists who all agree that there is that things are morally right or wrong, morally good or evil, and that humans necessarily make those judgments. And if they disagree on those judgments and belong to the same camp, i.e. atheism, then they're being inconsistent. And there's just so much wrong with that.
Yeah, this is a type of philosophy. So I sort of tend to view, I enjoy philosophy sometimes, but I do view philosophy as sort of removed from the things that it's trying to explain, right? So when people do what's called meta-ethics, which is coming up with, you know, like a philosophy of moral discourse, basically, the idea is that, well, the data point here to explain is just that people talk about, you know, things being good, things being right or wrong. So you kind of get that for free, whichever theory that you have. And then some moral realists will come along and say, well, look, my theory makes it the case that there's, you know, these things called truth apt propositions which exist, and they're, you know, and they're what grounds our moral discourse or something. But that's a theory about what's going on. And it's not like if you reject that theory in favor of some other theory, you can no longer explain how it is that someone can just say, I think that's wrong. It's just that you have a different explanation of what's going on, rather than there being these entities called truth apt propositions which are involved. You know, instead, there's just something else going on, maybe an expression of an emotion, or what you prescribing. So it doesn't really matter. But the point is that you don't lose, you know, the fact that you can say, yeah, I think that's wrong, right? You can still do that if you're an anti-realist or a realist. So
you're using too many words, Nathan. Just answer the question. Where is your skepticism? Where is your skepticism? Where is your consistency?
Yeah. Well, if he wants to pay for me to go to Harvard for a few years,
well, that obviously doesn't help.
And become a Muslim. Yeah, right.
I didn't say it proves.
How? Just explain that one to me. How is the fact that it causes harm indicate that it's immoral? Explain that one to me.
Do you think it's harmful to, you know, subjugate a certain race?
Why are you asking me? No, I'd ask you a question. How is it harm?
You ask. My turn to ask questions. My turn to ask questions.
Wow, he really doesn't get
it. That's a dodge. Yeah,
that was terrible. I mean, everybody sees that dodge. That's just horrible.
This is like the entire point you've been trying to make, and I'm trying to, like,
because it's something that's very basic. That harm is. Have you heard of the harm principle? Have you heard of how harm is calculated in utilitarianism? You're saying that harm has nothing to do with morality.
Utilitarianism isn't an moral system. It's not a moral realist system. So
utilitarianism is not a moral system.
No, it's a pragmatic system. So morality says there is an objective right and wrong. Utilitarianism doesn't. So
this is where I find TJump entertaining, but I do think he can sometimes introduce confusion for the sake of debate, right? So, So in terms of the line of questioning, I do think there's something that's slightly unfair about it, which is going to be that for pretty much any philosophy, you can always kind of ask, well, how is that thing that, right? And you can just reject whatever explanation someone's going to give you. You know, you can so say you might accept that mean molecular energy is heat or something, right? And I can say, well, how is mean molecular energy of a gas, the temperature of the gas? You go, well, look, it's to do with energy, and kinetic energy is a type of energy, and energy is conserved. Yeah, but how? You know, you can just keep asking this how question. There's going to become a point where and a lot of our ordinary language is like this, you know, where particularly something like harm being connected to morality, a lot of people are just going to really struggle to provide explanations as to why these things are connected. And I think TJump's kind of partly playing on that, and then the second thing is, like this, well, it's a pragmatic system, it's not a moral system. Well, they're not like they're not mutually exclusive categories, right? It's a normative moral theory. So you might say it's a moral theory and it's a normative.
You could say that utilitarianism is a moral theory.
It's not. It's in that set as well. It's not. Yeah.
I think his initial objection was that that utilitarianism is not a moral realist or moral objectivist theory, where you could argue that certain forms of utilitarianism are or are not.
That's true. If that's where it's coming from in the conversation.
You could argue that he's wrong about that. So you could argue that certain utilitarian perspectives may be, moral objectivist or not. But then he got into it's not a moral system; it's a pragmatic system, which doesn't really make sense. It is a moral system, by definition. But if you want to reject the existence of moral good and evil and hold on to utilitarianism and say I will advocate for or allow whatever is good and not harmful, and object to or ban whatever is not harmful, but I don't agree that there are that there is such a thing as morally evil or morally good, therefore it is not a moral system, then you have to really play with the definitions here. That's what he's getting to, I think.
It does, and it happens in these. That's what happens in these debates, sort of inevitably, though, because of the combative nature of them. Is that you're essentially making, you're moving chess pieces around a board in a linguistic discourse, right, where there are various moves available to you, and one of them is like trap the other guy and not being able to provide explanations. Another one is like, paint a picture where they're unable to provide the correct definitions and then they look stupid. And these are the moves that's just how it's going to be if someone comes out being a dick, right? Oh, sorry, I know you said no. So being a bad person.
I just used very bad swear words earlier, so I don't know why you're saying sorry. But here's the thing. The whole objection started because Daniel Haqiqatjou argued that harm means morally evil. So how can you not agree that if something is harmful, it is morally evil? That's a completely idiotic argument and question to ask. It's like that's not how it works. So, and that's where the objection from T-Jump's side starts, and then it gets a little bit conflated. But I really wonder where that will go.
Yes, it does.
No objective right and wrong. Utilitarianism doesn't. So
yes, it does.
No.
Ask Jeremy Bentham. Ask John Stuart Mill. Ask any of these philosophers.
So
what's your qualification in philosophy?
The question I asked.
Did you see how quickly he went for that one? What's your qualification in philosophy? And he also said, he also immediately appealed to the I don't know, founders or proponents of utilitarianism as we know it, and basically treats it like it is a religion like Islam, where you have to agree with everything that they say in order to be truly utilitarian. If you do not, then you are not really a utilitarian person or utilitarianist person, which is entirely wrong. Utilitarianism developed over time after those people. Different forms of utilitarianism exist, which greatly disagree or agree with many of the things that the founders and proponents of this idea held. He even, during a debate, said something like, "Do you know that Jeremy Bentham actually said many things that are completely unacceptable to liberals today?" Well, yeah. he thinks that is a big gotcha moment.
Right, yeah.
But that's how it's supposed to be. Those people simply presented ideas. That does not mean we abide by every single word and idea that they presented. It is...
Yeah, and I think sometimes this question about like someone's credentials or something in philosophy it depends on the claim, right? So if the claim is about what most philosophers believe or something like that, well then someone who's got credentials is presumably going to be in a position to sort of articulate what the various, what positions people take seriously, what positions they don't, and justify, they're justified in thinking those sorts of claims, whereas maybe someone on the fringes isn't. But if the claim is actually about, the actual contents, right, then it's not going to do to appeal to your expertise as a philosopher or something, because in that case, the point of philosophy just is to dispute. There aren't there aren't the kind of settled theory of philosophy that philosophers themselves all disagree about all of these issues, and that's the point. So you can't really appeal even to things like what most philosophers believe in Phil Paper's survey to establish points, because the point of philosophy is that the things that philosophers talk about are contentious, right? So the expertise thing doesn't do a whole lot, unless maybe someone was saying like, look, most in 2022 most people believe X or something, and you might be like, well, how would you know that, right? And if they're like, well, I attend this university and go to all these conferences, that's going to provide some justification for that claim. And if they're like, well, I just kind of hang out on YouTube, they're not going to really have a way of knowing what's being talked about in the academy or something. But it doesn't give you this kind of it doesn't give you this authority to say what's true, in the same sense maybe it would for a physicist, right? If someone's like, well, look, I'm a PhD in physics, so here's how the physics is, right? That's a different type of thing to I'm a PhD in philosophy, therefore, contentious claim is true or something.
Yeah, and you would still have to. I mean, even if you have the highest degrees of whatever field you are, and you specialize in, you are still expected to be consistent and accurate in the information that you provide, and also to back up the arguments that you make with actual facts, with evidence that we can view and then judge. Obviously, here in this case, he loves to immediately go for the I am a philosophy graduate, you are not, so be quiet, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
But we clearly see that it's not playing in his favor. I mean, he doesn't provide evidence for any of the claims. When you fact check them, they turn out to be twisted and wrong. And when he talks about certain moral ideas like utilitarianism and what is morally evil and not, he is simply simply wrong for everyone to see. I mean, anyone can see here. Anyone who has an idea about these moral philosophies can see that he's just talking nonsense. And
I would be very surprised if he's graduated, if he has actually graduated with a philosophy degree, just in light of, and maybe he has, but even with a decent grade or something, because just in light of him knowing he's going on, a show to debate someone and putting together an argument that's invalid, like that's just really
I know, that's what baffles me so much. It's weird. I don't understand what's going on. T-Jump, he looks very confused by the opening statement.
Actually,
the question I asked,
what's your qualification in philosophy?
Stop,
Do you know?
no,
You don't interrupt.
Gentlemen, I hate to do this, but it's difficult. Just to be sure that they can hear each of you, just want to, if I have to, break it into 2-minute segments, just because it's been really fruitful and people want to hear what each of you have to say. I just want to be sure that there's not too much interrupting, otherwise they can't hear either of you.
So the question I asked is how does harm indicate morality? Because his whole argument is that skeptics are not consistent because they agree sexual promiscuity is moral, even though it causes harm. But there's no evidence that harm equals morality. In fact, that's literally the wrong thing. We know that's false in philosophy. Harm is irrelevant to morality because there can be harmful things which are moral. And this is very common.
I guess it could be worded in a better way. Harm is not entirely irrelevant to morality, but you could say that harm is a factor in certain moral perspectives, but maybe irrelevant even within the same moral framework, depending on the context, or maybe entirely irrelevant to other moral viewpoints. But it certainly is not like a major factor which must play a huge role in all moral systems. That's simply not how it is.
The issue I have is just with Tom making that claim, like we know in philosophy, right? As if like anyone who is a philosopher or studies it or something is going to come to the same conclusion, because that's just, these are like disputed topics and people have different beliefs. So a lot of people who are naturalists, natural moral realists, that is, which isn't a whole bunch of people, but are going to think that things like harm are like the wrong-making properties, right? Like it's true that certain things are wrong, and if you ask the question, well, what's the wrongness, grounded in or in virtue of? Well, it's in virtue of harm or something like that.
Mhm.
That harm and a cluster of other properties, and that's what some people believe.
Well, I think the main.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just to say that, like, so that it's not like, and that position gets taken seriously. Like that's a naturalist, moral realist. It gets you moral realism if you think that's important. It gets you, and you can still be a naturalist, and it's what some professional philosophers believe. So it's not going to be true that just when we do philosophy we know this. But I'm also sympathetic towards Tom saying this because of how combative and douchey Daniel's being in the conversation. Right? It's like you've got to do this sort of stuff to navigate.
Yeah, what the thing is, Daniel makes claims about consistency among atheists and people like T-Jump, and T-Jump just asks a simple question. He says, how do you establish this? And then Daniel gets very angry and starts interrupting and gets loud and questions his degrees and all that. But it's just a very simple question. And here the issue is the disagreement starts when Daniel makes a simply factually wrong claim, where he basically where he implies or says that harm is a universal factor which decides whether something is morally evil or not. That simply is not true. In order for that to be true, you would have to establish that all moral perspectives that exist consider harm morally evil, and consider something that is not harmful morally not morally evil. But you can't do that if you are going to act like this is universal, unanimous in morality. Then you are simply wrong. You are making a mistake. You are muted, by the way. But here's also the issue. If T-Jump wants to jump in now and say that is wrong, because actually morality, harm does not matter at all to morality, that is also wrong, because harm does matter to many moral viewpoints, but may not be a factor in others.
Yeah, if the argument is supposed to be persuasive to all atheists, right? The point is that it has to be the case that all atheists are committed to the same claims that Daniel is saying.
Exactly.
Right? That harm is morality. So if there's some that don't, the argument's going to be unsuccessful. I think Tom's in the chat, by the way, as well. I sent on Facebook. I sent you a StreamYard join link, Tom, if you want to join.
Yeah, Tom, if you want to join, do it. Do it.
So you agree harm doesn't indicate it's immoral. So even if
your initial claim was that harm has nothing to do with morality, and I simply pointed out that yes, it does have a lot to do with morality.
That's literally irrelevant to the question here. So things can cause harm and be moral. Therefore, if something is harmful, it doesn't tell you whether or not it's moral.
I didn't say that. I said that harm is evidence that something could be immoral.
No, that's literally...
That's not what he said at all. That's never what he argued.
It's not what he said in the opening at all. He might have said it recently in this little bit, but not...
Yeah, but that was not at all his argument in the opening speech.
Yeah.
We both did not hear such a thing.
Yeah.
On the contrary, his argument was repeatedly that certain things are proven to be harmful, but atheists still agree that they are okay. Therefore, we're being inconsistent because we are allowing harmful things. That was his argument. That was his main argument in the opening statement.
Yeah,
and that is simply stupid. Oh, Tom is here, by the way.
He is. I see him in the private chat.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
good. How are you?
Pretty good. I just got here. I had a conversation with David Fitzgerald on Jesus mythicism, so couldn't come earlier.
Oh, you're always doing something, right? Always live, always streaming. Yeah, we were just talking about you. I don't know if you can tell.
What? Oh, I had no idea. I just popped in just to say hi. Just happened to be talking about me. Coincidence. Yeah, I did. There were a few things like I was really interested going into this debate because I thought he was going to bring up such a really interesting argument that like atheist epistemologies are inconsistently overly skeptical of God. And that would have been a really interesting debate. But he took it in this totally weird direction that some atheists are inconsistent in political beliefs and aren't as like as fastidious in looking at evidence for like feminism or whatever as they are for God, which has nothing to do with me. Like, I don't know why he picked that topic to debate me when I'm like more of like a centrist. So I don't even know how he began to think this was a good idea, because he's essentially just saying some atheists are humans and are not perfectly consistent and rationally. I'm like, wow, what an amazing insight into humanity that no one has ever thought of before in the history of the world.
It's unclear, you know, like, so he picked the topic right, because it seems technically he's won, right, the debate topic, because you've conceded that there are in fact some atheists who are inconsistent, and that's kind of the problem, I think, with that debate topic. It's such a mess.
Well, yeah, the worst thing is like he didn't explain what he meant by it. So when I was talking with modern day debates, I was like, Daniel suggested this topic, are atheists consistent skeptics? And he's like, oh, and you're the affirmative, like me, I'm supposed to be the affirmative in this debate. Like, right. Clearly he's trying to say that atheists are just not logically consistent in some way. So he's making the affirmative, but he phrased it in such a way that I'd have to take the affirmative anyway. But I'm like, all right, I'll do it. Let's go with it. Fine, whatever. But the way he never explained that he was going to go in this direction about some kind of political inconsistency.
Daniel Haqiqatjou has this obsession with political matters and with the corruption of the West and all of that. He loves to appeal to evidence which he never likes to actually present, and loves to appeal to statistics and birth rates, which he brings up in every debate, even if it's about whether God exists or not. And so this is what he does all the time. He debates with people about whether Islam is good or not, and then he brings the whole discussion to, you know, America invaded many countries, so Islam is good. How dare you argue otherwise? And it seems like what's funny is he proposes this debate topic, and you would expect that he would now, argue that atheist beliefs and perspectives are incoherent or inconsistent. But what actually happens, and everybody's baffled by this, is that he argues, well, America meddles in other people's internal conflicts and businesses, and atheists don't object to that. Therefore, where's your skepticism, atheists?
But his initial argument was even weirder. I mean, we've talked about the first problem was it's not even valid, right? Which is a bit of an issue for, and he's got six premises and two conclusions over 2 pages.
I do want to say one thing though. Like for most people, I wouldn't say you need a valid argument. Like it's a pretty high bar to say that you want someone to actually be able to write a formal syllogism and get it right. If it's just an average guy on modern day debate, you know, you don't expect him to have a formal argument. But he has a PhD from Harvard or whatever, right? Come on, and he can't make a formal syllogism. Like this is a little bad.
I don't know, like even, you know, most people I'd think should be able to just, you know, like 2 premises and a conclusion or something, right? I don't know that that's, but yeah, it's even worse in light of the claims that he's making about his education and stuff.
You know what's weird? I sit here questioning my own sanity when I listen to this stuff, and I feel like, wait a minute, am I getting all of this wrong?
Yeah, you feel gaslit. I get this a lot as well when people are so like far removed from the way I'm thinking about things. I'm like, is there something? Is my reality like just completely wrong?
Yeah, I had the exact same experience in the debate when he said, like, most atheists are moral realists. My mind was blown. I'm like, what? Like,
where do you get
all
that
of
from?
the people on my channel are yelling at me, moral realism is stupid. How can you possibly believe that? I'm like, I don't even know where you get that from. From like, Nathan, what's your perspective? Do you think most general atheists are moral realists?
I don't think that they're going to be. No, I think most are going to, you know, instead just explain things in terms of some evolutionary story and emotions or something like that.
Yeah, I was there doubting, like, wait, am I wrong about this? Could I be wrong about this? Like, is my impression of most atheism wrong here? Like, I don't know. It was so weird. The confidence in which he said that, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's the confidence trick. Yeah, the con man.
Yeah, we all feel always gaslit when Daniel Haqiqatjou comes in and starts presenting his very strange arguments. So,
so the other thing about the other thing that was weird, right, was the argument he actually presented formally seemed to be saying something like atheists who live in liberal Western democracies should be revolting.
Oh yeah, why did he never get back to that? What was the relevance of that? He brings it up at the beginning, but then never actually does anything about it. What is going on?
So my to try and steel man's argument to the strongest possible way would be something like, there are many far left atheists who are denying facts about, let's say, gender or biology or whatever, and there is good arguments against them, but they want to include the leftist social justice kind of arguments or whatever. And he's saying that they're not skeptical of those because there's evidence against them and there's a legitimate debate there, where they are skeptical against God. And if they applied the same epistemic standards to God that they do to feminism, then they wouldn't believe in feminism and they revolt against feminist professors or something. I think that's the most rational way I can interpret his argument.
And the entire foundation of that, I mean, he starts the entire thing with atheists agree that atheists only operate based on scientific facts, and
Everything,
and they don't believe in God because God cannot be scientifically proven.
Yeah, that hurt my head the way he defines skepticism. Skepticism is using empiricism to verify every claim, every belief you have. I'm just like, how? Where? Which dictionary? Please provide. Is there a Muslim dictionary that says this somewhere?
Yeah, but what about those Chinese, right? They were atheists, and
I don't know. This makes me sit here and makes me think. I don't know. Maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe I'm on. Maybe I'm losing it. I'm dissociating with reality. I should lean back and maybe I should see a doctor. I don't know. That's how I feel when I listen to this. I just don't understand how this can be. I mean, somebody explain this to me. This guy claims to be a graduate from Harvard in philosophy, and he brags about it. He always brings it up. What are your degrees? What are your qualifications? I graduated from Harvard on philosophy.
There's no way that he's a PhD.
Then he talks about these things, and he makes no sense. He sounds like an amateur in terms of philosophy. He doesn't know. He doesn't understand utilitarianism. He doesn't understand that not all moral systems judge based on harm. He doesn't understand very simple things which you learn in a simple philosophy introduction course. I don't understand.
Yeah, the definition of skeptic is just awful. And then I asked for a definition of consistent or inconsistent, and I don't think he knows what the definition is. He gave an example. And typically when people do that, it's because they don't know what the definition is. And so I'm guessing he doesn't know what that is either, which if you have a degree in philosophy, that's kind of an important thing to know.
Yeah, I find it funny that he gets offended when you ask him to explain how exactly harm decides whether something is morally evil or not, and then he gets offended by that and starts yelling at you and questioning your qualifications. I mean, if you make an argument, you shouldn't be offended when you are asked to explain that, right?
Yeah, I think he was so blindsided by it because he didn't think anybody would ever question that, and so the fact that I did just threw him off his track so much. He had no idea what to do other than to get angry.
Yeah, so the next thing to do is to attack the person, delegitimize their question's not legitimate if it's coming from someone who doesn't have a degree, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what else needs to be said. I mean, this is just. I would really suggest Muslim fans of Daniel Haqiqatjou to watch this and be honest to yourself. If people think that Daniel Haqiqatjou actually makes a lot of sense, that he's very rational, and we sat down and listened to it, and you can see everything for yourself. Even if you want to talk about the evidence that he brings, I just went and did you see that, Tom? His whole
I immediately ended my show and joined here, so I didn't get to see any of it yet.
Look at this. So there was this one point where he persistently argued that atheists agree that 87% of atheists agree that abortion should be legal in all cases. And you then say, that can't be right. It's probably not all cases. And then he persistently says, no, it is. I gave you I told you it's pure research. All 87% agree it should be legal in all cases. So I went there and actually looked at the research as I was watching it. And your skepticism there, funnily enough, was completely accurate. Here is the research that he's referencing. Should abortion be legal in wait a minute, 87% of atheists agree that abortion should be legal in all/most cases. Is that what he persistently argued? No, he said it's definitely all. And it's even broken down here into 50% is all and 37% is most. It's clearly right here. You just have to look at the data. It's right there. But when you question this, when you apply your skepticism, which he consistently asks for, he says, no, like I presented it. It's all.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that he was factually wrong about things, because I don't know if there's anything he was factually right about in the entire debate, except maybe like liberal colonialism. I've never even heard that term before. I know colonialism, and I was right about the date on that one. He was wrong, but like he's made up this new term, liberal colonialism. Like that's not a thing. Does it just mean whenever a liberal nation did colonialism, and that's what he's talking about?
I think it would also include into that if Western countries have an influence on how Saudi Arabia does politics and what kind of Islamic teachings they allow, then that is liberal colonialism.
Yeah, and apparently liberalism is anything that liberal authors advocate for in their book at any point. So if they want you to conquer a nation, that's liberalism too. Clearly. Equal
And
rights and conquering.
Atheist consensus is if somebody in China thinks something, that is atheist consensus. Yeah, man, it's very bad. Terrible situation.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping for something a little more substantive in that debate.
You had your hopes high, right?
Yep. He sounds smart. He sounds educated. He has a decent vocabulary.
Well, that's the apologetics game, right?
Yeah. Anyway, is there anything else that we need to talk about? I think it's very obvious.
Oh, criticisms of me. We skipped over that part.
Well, you were terrible.
I think there are a couple of points where you're saying things that I'm not too sure. I think that you're saying them because of the debate context, right? So like he's being super aggressive and confrontational. So you're like, well, how can I sort of like trap him in things that he's said and stuff? But I'm not sure. You know, like you said, in philosophy, we know that harm isn't a wrong making property or something like that, or harm isn't wrong. And it's like, well, some people think that, some people don't think that. You know, it just depends on what your theory is, and it's not like philosophers as a whole have like a consensus on any of these things. So it's like, it's things like that where it's not strictly true, but saying, you know, like in philosophy we know this is it, given he's kind of posturing is like, well, where's your degree, right? It's like, well, you know.
Yeah, so in that context I should have said like necessarily or something. We know it's not necessarily tied in, and that's probably what I was trying to go for in that situation.
Yes.
And so it's with the heat of the moment you're just yelling at him.
Exactly. So, yeah. So I think the things like that, right, they're my criticisms, but they also make sense given the like tension stuff that's going on. So.
Yeah, that point. I mean, his entire assertion there, very boldly, is if something is harmful, then that means it's morally wrong, and that's just an.
And all atheists believe that.
Yeah. You cannot say that that universally, if something is harmful, it is morally wrong. That's simply not how it works. That means you are ignorant of philosophy and of how what kinds of moral perspectives people hold and adhere to. So you rightly call him out on that, and he gets angry. You say then in response that harm has nothing to do with it, that it's irrelevant to morality, which I think is wrong. It is relevant to moral perspectives, but I guess what happens there is that in the moment of the heat, things get mixed up.
Well, no, so I would say that it isn't. So I would say that consent matters more than harm. So if someone wants to, say, commit suicide or something, and they consent to it, even though that's one of the greatest harms you can cause them, it would still be moral to kill them. So like assisted suicide, Dave Warnock. If he wants to die, I think it's moral to harm him in that case. And so I think that harm doesn't directly have anything to do with morality. I think it's more about consent. And if you consent to having harm done to you, then it's perfectly moral to be harmed.
So I think theories that say that something like harm is a wrong-making property are going to say, well, there's a lot of properties that go into, you know, any sort of real states of affairs that make them right or wrong, you know, like natural properties. And and it's just going to be kind of balancing those off against each other. So it could be the case that, you know, there's some harm involved, but there's these other various properties that are good making properties that sort of outweigh it. So even though there's the presence of harm, you know, it's not that the presence of harm is it's not that the presence of harm guarantees that something is wrong or something, but it's the way you kind of like count these various properties together. And so the more harm that you have, right, that's going to make something wrong. That's one of these wrong-making properties, but it doesn't guarantee, its presence doesn't guarantee that it's wrong. That's how I think someone like Peter Railton thinks about it. But,
well, I disagree with Peter Railton and Peter Singer and their models. But so from my perspective, I think that harm is ambiguous. It's amoral on its own, and its morality depends on whether or not someone consents to it. So like, for example, if I consent to playing a very difficult video game like Dark Souls or something and get very, very upset by it, I'm emotionally harmed by it, but it was consensual. I agreed, I wanted to have this experience. And so harm can be moral just as often as it can be immoral. It just is that we have a tendency to not consent to harm in general, given our current psychological and biological states.
Okay, so what I have, I think my only issue with that, now based on what was said during the debate, is that the wording can be improved. So you would argue that harm alone is not a deciding factor and therefore irrelevant to whether something is morally evil or not. But when you say, like during the debate, that harm is completely irrelevant to
well, I think that's what Tom believes, actually.
That sounds like...
Yeah.
So I'm with Nathan here. I think that harm tells you nothing. If you can measure the harm of an action, it will tell you zero of whether or not the action is moral or immoral. So
okay, but the issue is that's only your perspective, right? So you hold the perspective that harm is entirely irrelevant to morality.
And in that claim, I was only making a claim from my perspective. I wasn't making a general philosophical claim.
Okay, but the issue here is he makes it look like it is a universal truth, reality, that harm decides whether something is moral or not. And you then object to it and say, actually harm is irrelevant to morality because you are speaking about your own perspective, and things really get lost there. I would say the reality is that morality is a huge field of different perspectives. In some of them, harm is the deciding factor. In others, it is a factor. In some others, it is completely irrelevant. That would be the truth. So the claim that Daniel makes in the beginning, the assertion that he makes, is simply completely wrong. Introduces a big confusion. If you then argue that it's irrelevant to your perspective, that's totally acceptable. I think that the wording can be improved where we add that it is not entirely relevant to morality in general.
Yeah. So I was just giving a counterexample, which was my model, and I could have phrased that better to say that it's not necessarily relevant to most mortals. Like, for example, mine, it has no relevance whatsoever. And then give an example, like you can have the greatest harm, and if it's consensual, it's moral. And so that disproves, if my model is correct, that disproves your claim that harm equates
that all atheists believe that all atheists believe.
Oh god, I hated that too, where like halfway through the debate, or right at the beginning, he brings up most atheists, and then I start talking about all the other atheists who are mostly moral relativists, and he's like, why are you talking about the other atheists?
I mean, his whole idea is all he wants to do is he wants to say atheists, most atheists believe in science only, but they also have these wrong views about these things, although we have scientific facts which should make them think otherwise. And that's all he wants to argue. If you then come and talk about how 15% of atheists actually don't hold those views, that's irrelevant to him, because what he wants to talk about is atheists as a group and a political force. But that's just not a way to approach the situation. And even there, he makes false claims. I mean, I have never heard of an atheist who believes that you can only make moral judgments based on science, right? And that was one of his claims, which is ridiculous.
That was like his main claim. That was like his main argument at the beginning of his like rebuttal stage. Like that is the claim. Like
that is so dumb. I've never heard of an atheist who thinks like that.
Well. Yes. But this is what it's like earlier. His idea of the sciences as well is like just looking in a test tube or something, right? And it's like, so where in this test tube am I going to get my political beliefs? You know,
I'm going to go to the laboratory to come up with some new political ideas. Yeah. That's man. I mean, what kind of I don't even. This is just. I will be baffled by this forever. How this guy, who claims to be so great in philosophy, says these things.
Do you guys know of any respectable Muslim debaters who are like intellectually honest and willing to like really debate things?
I would suggest only one that I know, who is Abdullah Andalusi. He debated before on Modern Day Debate with Matt Dillahunty. I think, although I would say he's inconsistent and very wrong on many things, I think he's quite honest, and he tries to be really thorough and all that, and he's very respectful. I would say he won't talk to me because I'm the ultimate evil and all that, but he will probably have a debate with me
either, because I psychologized him on Pine Creek once. So with me about that.
Oh, that's the other guy. That's the other guy. That's
is that a
Asadullah.
different one?
Yeah, that's the other
okay,
one.
that's
Yeah.
What do you think of Hamza Tortis? Not a fan.
Well, here's the thing. I sympathize with the way he presents himself and he talks about things. But, I mean, I would say he's a dishonest guy because he believes in terrible, abhorrent things and hangs around with people like Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa, who are his gang, and then acts like, oh, people just have big misconceptions about Islam and all that. But yeah, he's more of a grown-up if you want to have a discussion with somebody, I would say. Definitely preferable to people like Daniel Haqiqatjou, Muhammad Hijab, and all those weirdos.
Yeah. Hamza.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just childish. That's a whole different level. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Are we done here, or are we supposed to give a grade to this debate and to Tom for his performance?
I think I'm a 10 out of 10. I think it was a great. The atheist debater did a phenomenal job in this debate. Just super props.
Well, we didn't really see a whole lot of Tom because we spent like 2 hours on the opening statement as well. But I think your opening statement of I have no idea what you just said. That was all gibberish thing. It's probably about as good as good.
Yeah, I have no idea how any of this relates to the questions. Yeah. That was pretty good.
My favorite part when he said you were taking college class, and I was like, well, I missed the college class on how to teach kids. I loved that. That was a good moment.
Yeah,
I think I watched you a few times. I mean, I watched you debate people occasionally. I don't really watch debates very, very much, but I don't know. I feel like this is the first time that I saw you get very, very angry and
you want to watch the Jay Dyer one?
And argumentative.
Do you jump in Jay Dyer if you want to see
really?
getting frustrated?
Yeah, I have a list of dumpster fires, which are all the yelly ones. Me and Godless Girl, that's a good one. The Darth Dawkins ones, those are good ones. Yeah, there's a number of screamers. Oh, me and Jack Angstrikes and his crew. That one, lots of screaming in that one.
Nice. All right. So I give this debate a 8 out of 10. No, actually a 7 out of 10. I give Daniel Haqiqatjou 2 out of 10.
It's hard to see how it could be. What would a 1 out of 10 look like? Like.
I just want to give him one point for the effort.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it could have been worse. He could have literally just turned up with like the ISIS flag behind him. And
well, I mean, to be fair, he's not Nadir. He didn't say, but the bees, four facts
right.
about bees in the Quran.
Right. You are right about that. Nadir is absolutely terrible. Yeah. But honestly, I have to say something here. I will be very honest about this now. I watched Daniel Haqiqatjou before. I had a conversation with him twice. And in all honesty, I think this was one of the worst performances that I have ever seen from him. He made absolutely no damn sense throughout the entire conversation. He was beyond horrible. I mean, I don't like the guy, but this was the worst performance of his that I have seen. So I have to say this.
I think he agrees. That's why he's made like 3 or 4 videos about me on his channel now, just because of this. So I think he may subconsciously agree with you.
Right.
Probably. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to read a few super chats here quickly. Anya Nuri made a super sticker, which I cannot see here because of my program that I'm using, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. I read this before. Sainath said, cross-check your references, shocked how few Muslims still defend, support Sharia. I'm a Hindu. I born Manusmriti. I don't know what that means. I follow good spiritual things in Hinduism. Nice. Good luck with that. Abishkek Godness said, what are your views on Hinduism? Thousands old culture with a scientific and not a religion, but more focused on the culture and evolution as a human. I learned about Hinduism a bit. I researched a little bit. I was quite interested in the past. I'm interested in some cultural aspects and the traditions of it. That said, I think Hinduism brings a lot of falsehoods with it, a lot of fantasy thinking, a lot of apathy, and a very wrong way of ruling a society. I think it's an outdated belief that people should move on from while taking maybe the good things from it. That's my view. What do you guys think?
So I really like that in Hinduism, they give real numbers for their ages of the earth. And so they predict the age of the earth is 4.3 billion years old, one of the waking cycles of Brahma or whatever. And that's the most accurate prediction any religion ever made. Now, technically, they think that we're only like halfway through it. So it's only like 2 billion. So they're off by a bit. But that's probably the most accurate prediction in any religion I've heard of.
Is that actually found in a fundamental, in an essential source of
Hinduism? Their text of the age of the earth is like strictly fundamental. I think it's the Bhagavad Gita itself is where the numbers are found. So it's pretty core.
I read the Bhagavad Gita.
It's in the Vedas, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So the actual philosophy of Hinduism I find fairly interesting. Of all the religions, maybe the most interesting one, because the idea that the self is God, right? Then you've just kind of forgotten something is pretty weird and fascinating. But the religion itself, I find incredibly harmful. Like the caste system in India is just a complete mess. So that would be a reason to sort of abandon Hinduism as its practice as a religion. And also, the scientific claims that are found in the various religious texts, I think, are just false. I've watched a lot of the Hindu apologists, right? They base their apologetics around arguing that these are in fact right, and I just see all the same problems with that as I do, when young Earth creationists or whatever. I mean, as Tom says, they're more accurate, right, than the young Earth creationists at least. But I've got some serious problems with those sorts of things.
It's also I read the Bhagavad Gita, which is the only text actually that I really read from Hinduism, and it has a very it has a moral message on how to fulfill your role in the world, in life. And it actually the religion itself actually gives you an ideology, an idea based on which you are supposed to live, and it tells you you are currently in a conflict. You will fight those people that are close to you, those people that you love. You will be at war with them, and you don't want to fight, you don't want to kill, but you have to understand that in the current situation, this is what you have a role to fulfill in this world, and you must act accordingly. And I feel like it's an interesting philosophy, and very interesting that something so old gives people like a very deep explanation of what you are doing in this world and how you should act. Basically, I'm saying this in very primitive words right now. It's much more sophisticated than that. But then again, I think it also kind of takes control of how you are supposed to think about society, and that's just where I'm kind of in conflict with it. Yeah. Since nobody else had anything else to say, I'll move on to the next one. Zoinks said, AP, do you plan on writing a book? I am writing a book. I have been writing a book for 2 years now. It would have been done long ago. Unfortunately, writing a book apparently never really goes according to the initial plan. So I'm still far from done. but it will be called The End of Islam, and it will be a complete analysis of Islamic claims and their refutations.
Question about that: have you found like publishers that help you do like advertising things, or are you
No,
self-publishing?
I haven't gotten in contact with anybody yet. I want to only start searching once I have something that I can actually show for myself. Yeah. Jane Miller made a super chat and didn't say anything, but thank you so much. And Jesus or Muhammad made a super sticker, which I cannot see, which is apparently a peach for some reason. That looks very sexual, but thank you. And wait a minute, there's one thing I missed somewhere. M. Doug said, so premarital sex is shocking, yet having sex slaves is not. Yeah.
As long as there's no harm involved.
Oh, that's funny too, because I think somebody in the chat brought up the necrophilia part. Well, you're not harming the body, right? So by
Right,
Daniel's
exactly.
definition, it shouldn't be wrong. Come on.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Therefore, just go to a graveyard and do what you want to. It's not morally wrong because there's no harm involved. Yeah, that's funny. Well, okay, he could argue that that the soul is still, attached to the body, and the body still goes through things when the human dies, and you're still harming an actual being and all that. But then, if we strip it off his religious worldview, then we could say, well, I don't believe that there is a soul, so there should be nothing wrong with just doing that. I'm not causing harm to anybody or anyone. Well, what's your problem with that? If you want me to not rape dead people, then you need to convince me why I should believe that there is a soul. That's the issue.
Yeah, it's funny how they find that reviling, but not with underage girls and sex slaves and forced marriages. Those are fine, but dead body,
Right.
that's where the cutoff is.
What you don't understand is that men need to marry little girls in order to make sure that they make enough babies and preserve.
YouTube demonetization, activate.
Yeah.
But that is his actual argument. I mean, I'm not making this up. Look, I'm gonna play this just
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm gonna play this just now. Wait a minute. I'm serious. That's what he argues.
Well, that is why I think the population of Afghanistan is like 50% under age 15 or something.
Right.
Look, here, I'm going to show you the clip so that you don't think I'm making this stuff up. I'm serious, man.
You'd have Haqiqatjou says, under Sharia, Muhammad was allowed to marry Aisha when she was 6. Would this be allowed under your system, Daniel?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that many cultures practice to this day. And it's based on this biological reality. They're trying to maximize the fertility window of women because they want to have more children. And this is basically the way that evolutionary psychologists explain it. And I'm not promoting evolution, but these are people that you would respect, or other atheists. They say that it's actually to an evolutionary advantage to maximize the fertility window so you have as many children as possible, because women only have about 25 to 30 years of fertility. If they wait until they're 25 or 30 or 35 to get married and have kids or have sex, then that means they'll only have maybe 1, maximum 2 children. But this will allow extinction of the population and for the people to be wiped out. And this is why you find it in so many societies in the pre-modern period and even today, because it's biologically hardwired. And you have a discussion actually about whether marrying children who are pubescent, okay, so around 10 years old, 9 years old. This is something that there's a dispute and a debate within psychology whether this is a psychological disorder. And your secular atheist psychologists say that no, it can't be considered a dysfunction because it is practiced in these societies. It's evolutionarily adaptive, so it's not actually causing any harm. And when we look at the girls and the women in these societies, there's nothing that is dysfunctional about them and problematic. Marriage to 9-year-olds is not considered pedophilia. What is pedophilia are the practices of modern pedophiles who go into the closet and diddle little kids. That's
But if it's not in the closet, right,
that
it's
is
absolutely
an
fine if it's
abomination.
within.
Islam does not promote that. Islam promotes marriage. It promotes family. It promotes these wholesome values, and other societies have practiced this as well.
He said Islam doesn't allow, the Western way, like how there's pedophilia, etc. Yeah, Islam just legalizes pedophilia. Aisha, one could actually argue, she actually didn't even have kids. So maybe she was damaged internally because she was married at the age of 9. This is what happens when you become so dogmatic about one particular idea. Now, in this debate, it seems like he's overly concerned about the fertility rate. Yes, from the moment a little girl has her first period, that's it. Turn her into a baby-making machine, as though this is her only purpose in life, to just make babies. The solution that Daniel Haqiqatjou offers are beyond disgusting.
I gave you the justification. I gave you the reasoning. And I showed you that this is something that is practiced pretty widely in the world, and even many cultures today, they practice it. Women actually naturally want to have children. This is a natural biological function, and people have been doing it for all of human history. It's only human rights extremism that is destroying these cultures and these traditions and these practices.
Like literally that justifies rape and slavery and torture and every kind of horrendous thing humans have ever done in the past. Well, because it was good for evolution, therefore it's totally fine, right?
Lots of people are doing it. And listen, and these evolutionary psychologists, there's lots of them. And they're saying it's like a Trump's speech about bringing the light inside the body, where it's like, and the scientists, they're saying they can bring the light inside the body. It's just, that's probably a combination of the stupidest and most reprehensible sort of topics combined that I've ever heard anyone talk. Like that, I was thinking as I was watching his face, like, does he actually believes this? Like, he actually thinks that it's okay for a grown adult man, right, to have sex with a 6 or 7-year-old girl.
What we're talking about is not even just a regular grown man. We're talking about, in this example, a 55-year-old man who has sex with a 9-year-old girl.
Oh my God.
And he says this is actually a wholesome value. This is actually good because it aims to maximize the fertility rate, which is what women also want. So therefore, it's not bad. This is actually very good, and science supports this.
Yeah, I'm sure it's what those 7-year-olds want, right? They understand what all that stuff means.
Yeah, it's definitely.
You both didn't believe that I was actually. You both didn't believe
Yeah.
that this is actually that he actually said these things, right? But here you have it.
Well, after having debated him, I was not super skeptical, but yeah, the science is pretty clear that young women having pregnancies is very damaging to the body. So it's not in any way healthy. There's no ambiguity. There's no debates. It's definitely physically bad for the body. Pregnancy on its own is physically bad for the body. For an extremely young body, it's significantly worse and can cause significantly higher rates of death and permanent damage.
I mean, he has this logic, like at the age of around the age of 9, if a girl starts to have her puberty, then it's just the body signaling that she's now ready to get pregnant. Therefore, you can start the race now. But it's stupid. I mean, that just means your body starts developing a function, which does not mean that it is now time for you to do this thing. I mean, you could also argue that your brain starts to memorize things at the age of 5 and preserve memories. Therefore, you should become the president of the United States as a 5 years old. It's
a bird has got a feather. It's ready to fly. One feather. Yep. Legit.
Yeah. True, right. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's horrible logic, man. I don't know. This is the stuff that we're dealing with. I'm glad that you guys had your good share of the insanity here.
It's just so crazy. It's that thing that you were saying before, though, about where you start thinking, am I the crazy one? Like, is everything I think I know about the world just completely wrong? Am I in some sort of fever dream? Because, the fact that someone can just sit there like deadpan with a straight face and deliver that, it's almost like a parody, right? Of it's insane to me.
And the fact that he does have a degree from Harvard, because I mean, I respect that. That is an actual accomplishment to get a degree from a very prestigious university, and to be that stupid and to have such a prestigious degree causes me cognitive dissonance that I don't like in my brain about this should not be possible.
I know. That's why I'm questioning everything right now.
He just said that. Yeah, it's the deadpan delivery. You know, like there's no hint of like a smirk or anything. He's just like, yes, 6-year-olds. Like, hey.
At some point when I first heard of this guy and saw him talk, I was thinking, what if there were conspiracy theories when I was a Muslim that there are some people out there or entities out there that are that have this mission to make Islam look bad or to destroy Islam internally, and I'm over those things long ago, but when I saw this guy, I was like, maybe those things are true, maybe this guy maybe this guy is paid by people to make Islam collapse internally by making it look horrible to everybody.
Well, actually, I mean, maybe I'm going to start believing that, right? In light of it, because that's the only way to make the cognitive dissonance go away.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, he's both stupid and holds very reprehensible views, and it just shouldn't be the case with everything that he claims for himself. Anyway, yeah. There's not much more to say. We have been live for 3.5 hours. Wonderful. Max the Confessor said, great show, F Daniel. Thank you. I don't know what F stands for. Probably free fruit Daniel, yeah, or free Daniel. Anyway, all right, we'll go offline. T-Jump, Tom, you have your own YouTube channel, right?
Yep, youtube.com/tjump. I sell bathtubs.
You sell you sell what?
Bathtubs. That's my fault. That's what I do on YouTube. I sell bathtubs. Did you know?
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. That's awesome. I'll go there right now. And you also frequently appear on debates, like on Modern Day Debate and on other platforms, or just there?
Yeah, well, whoever pays me usually. James has me on contract or something, so I'm obligated to be on his channel at some point. But yeah, anybody can invite me on to do debates whenever.
Fantastic, awesome. And Nathan, we already talked about you.
Yeah, Digital Gnosis. People can check that out.
New headphones. They're not pink anymore.
Yeah, the pink ones, they're still there. Actually, in that corner. It was right. Because I think I had an interview or something like that, and I didn't want to wear pink one because I thought people would think it was silly. I was trying to be manipulative. Yeah.
All right. So you can find Nathan on his channel Digital Gnosis, which is tagged in the title and also in the description, and also T-Jump right there. Thanks everybody for watching. My mind is blown, and so is yours, I hope. Or there's something wrong with you. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a fantastic day and stay away from Islam.